Forgot.
You can't scar me after I went through the Keoland show, okay? On Living Greyhawk. So nothing will ever
Harbor Town is an all-new series from Miniature Building Authority,
get to
the
me
leader in tabletop
again,
gaming
so
scene.
that's fine. I mean,
Unique,
hey, why not?
flexible, and playable.
Britt, if you
Harbor
want to
Town.
make Jay mad,
we can do.
Don't talk about Thrommel and don't talk about if Thrommel's a vampire. I know exactly where you're going already. It doesn't make me mad. It makes Mike mad. I see that, Josh. You can sneak out for an hour. It's no big deal. I won't tell.
you see his intro.
Oh, at
there,
least he
Britt?
can hear us. We know he can hear us already.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop my video and eat real quick.
Yeah, go for it. You got 8 minutes. You're good.
We have 8 minutes of intro. That's amazing. Yeah.
Got a lot of sponsors to keep happy.
Well, also, it also allows people to get on. It also helps
Yeah.
us get relaxed. It also helps us get everyone on if someone's running late. You know, there's a method to my craziness. Joe, did you? How close are you? I know you got over 50. Are you close? To
I
your...
did. So I had an awesome number of people upping my average viewership, which is my last hurdle. And then I had a work emergency, so I had to end stream really fast.
Oh.
And I know it's absolute murder. And then I don't know, I felt this weird sense of pressure of, you know, if I log back on after having had like 11, when I think the most I'd ever had was 5, and my average is 2. And I'm like, oh, if I log on and I only have 2 again, I'll be so sad. I literally have not streamed since that day.
Oh my gosh.
Now, part of that was also, I'm like, I really want a role-playing game, and so I'm like, I'm not in the mood for The Witcher. I've played Divinity ad nauseum, and like everything I was doing, I'm like, I really just want to be able to wander. So I've already got something like 1,300 hours in Skyrim on my Xbox, but I fired that up again, made a new character that I'd never played before, and I just wander. Like anytime I get a quest, I just turn it off and just walking. And I've been doing that for like the last 4 days. So I haven't even been on my computer.
Just wandering aimlessly?
Yeah, well, it's like on your compass, it will say, "Hey, there's
Miley.
there's a cave nearby." So I'll like, okay, let's walk that direction. And I've played it so many times. I've got like a handful of quest resolution items that I've just stumbled on. I'm like, oh, if I ever make it to this city, I can complete that quest I don't have yet. But mostly, yeah, I'm just kind of like zigzagging up and down the continent.
It happens. I mean, I'll get on a roll and play Pathfinder Kingmaker for hours at a time. Then I won't put it. Then I'll let it go for 2 months. You know what I mean? So, what's up, David?
I can't play games anymore.
Why?
Back in the mid 2000s, I was unemployed and I was playing Armored Core, like
Which one?
24/7 on my PlayStation 2, like the first one or the second one. And I was just spending way too much time. I actually smashed my PlayStation controller on the driveway so that I could
That's
stop
not
playing.
healthy. Oh,
And I
wow.
have never played a console or like PC long game like any of those ever since, because I just got way too into them.
When I lost my job during the Great Recession, I had a rule. I'm going to spend $15 a month on Warhammer Age of Reckoning because I didn't like Warcraft. And so it's $15 a month. That's the only thing I'm going to buy. And I don't get to play any games until I've applied to a minimum of 3 jobs every day. So I get up, search, apply for jobs, and once I hit that mark, and I don't actually like MMOs. I learned through that experience, but I was unemployed for 5 months, and I played the crap out of that game.
Yeah, I never got into Warcraft. A whole bunch of the Living Greyhawk people would play it and use it to talk to each other, but I just,
Jesus.
I
Tiger does
love Pathfinder Kingmaker. I think it's the closest thing to Baldur's Gate 2 that's out there.
I got
That's
up
saying
to
something.
I got up to level. I actually played with Brit. I got up to like level 30 something or 40 Druid, but like, so here's the difference between Warhammer and Warcraft. Warcraft would be like, hey, go get me 7 fruits. And you'd go get 7 fruits, and that would be your side quest. In Warhammer, they'd be like, go get me 7 dead babies. And, because the bad guys were actually bad. So if you were playing on the bad guy side, you would do bad guy things. So I really liked the tonality of that game better. Although in the end, MMOs just boil down to me hitting the 1, 2, 3, 4 key. 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. Repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
Jay, and Pathfinder Kingmaker, does that mean we could throw you into a 3.5 or Pathfinder game and you'd know what you were doing?
No. I knew it was going there.
Because if I run a charity game, it's going to either be a 3.x or 5e.
Whatever you, I can do both. I mean, I'm just being facetious, but a lot of it is a lot of it's just my comfort, right?
Yeah.
Well, you incorporate a lot of 3rd edition stuff into your 1e, 2e game.
Yeah, that's
even
a lot.
if it's accidentally.
A ton of it. I admit it, but as Anna says, I'm the 2.75 or 2.5.
Oh yeah, you've done to first, 2nd edition what ISO did.
Pathfinder did a
3rd
3 point.
edition
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
It's fun watching the 1e, 2e stream, just because it's been. Like as soon as my group converted to 3rd edition, I've never played 1e, 2e ever again. Right, so for me, it's been almost 20 years to the month. And so I'm watching the stream, and I'm like, oh my god, I remember doing that. Oh my god, I remember doing that.
I played a game with back in LA. Not Frank Menser, but now I'm sorry, I'm bringing this right up. The other one of the now I get it. He was down to be one of the old guys that was Gary's kind of almost adoptive son. That was part of he even ran the Greyhawk for a bit. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. I just can't name
he
it.
was there to be interviewed, and he ran a game for a bunch of us that was.
Brett, I apologize not having your name down with
helping
Joe.
it,
I wasn't 100% sure.
And to me, that was I had to play it for like.
Whoops! Oh, I accidentally hit a button. That was me. I hit a button. See that Elgato is so sensitive. I nicked it with a nail.
Did you fix your
Yes,
what do you have, the streaming cheat thingy?
I fixed everything. Yeah, it was Zoom was a disaster. As they were trying to fix up things, and things were broken all over the place. And I updated multiple things, including my Elgato, along with updating Streamlabs, all sorts of stuff, and now it all works. Yeah, but it didn't work that one night. What night was it? Thursday? Thursday. I had to
you were
roll
having
back,
issues, I think.
Thursday night I had to roll back. By the way, thank you, Mike Wilson Celestian, for that resub. Did you get your board books yet? Is my question from Alan. I haven't sent out. I still have 4 things I gotta send out. But look at that, it's already 1 minute before. How's everyone doing tonight? It's gonna be a blast of a show. I guarantee it. We're gonna have a good time with this one. Yeah, but everything's fixed now. So.
Excellent.
Lozenge. All right, I got my Smith Brothers right here, Jason. My voice is already going, huh? So, getting some people on now. That's good. All right.
Coughing right now makes you nervous.
I can't. If I drink now, that'd be bad.
No, if I drink now, that would be bad.
Yeah,
At 9 a.m.
Good
You're
morning.
a university professor. Who cares?
From Korea, we'll say. So, good morning and
Brett
good
Fry.
evening. I'm J.A. Killer Gazumba, Legends and Lore, episode 45. Back to Living Greyhawk again, as we try and do Living Greyhawk once a month. This time, the wonderful free city of Dyvers. Is that what it is? Yes. And
Free and independent city of Dyvers.
Free and independent. It had to go longer name than Greyhawk for obvious reasons. So, good evening, everyone. Let's welcome everyone, then go to our special guests. We got Greyhawk, Mike Bridges, Anna Meyer, and Casey Brown. Casey's going to lurk and hang out. So, I just dropped that throat lozenge on the floor, and I have no idea where it went. So, there you go. Now I'm out of the throat lozenge. No big deal.
No, your cat's going to have a throat lozenge.
Yeah, exactly. So,
You don't want that one anymore now.
Let's welcome back to the show Joe Selby, okay, who was on before, and let's welcome our newest guest, first time to the show from South Korea, Britt Fry was a triad as well. Welcome. Thank you so
Thank
very
you,
much.
Jay.
Yep.
Really appreciate you coming on. We're excited about this discussion. It's amazing how many people in Discord. Did you notice this, Casey and Mike and Anna? I didn't know Living Greyhawk had an area in Dyvers. Did you see all those posts? I was like, yeah. So I'm glad to hear that this is going to be a nice education for a lot of people.
Yep.
So, Britt, you're brand new. Why don't you give us a little background on yourself and what you did in Living Greyhawk and what you're doing now.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
First, I'd have to say I remember that name tent. Joe, how many of those do you have?
I have a handful. Yeah, that's the template. That's the original.
I actually started in, I guess, near the end of year 1 playing, and I played until, oh gosh, Casey, you might be able to help me. I think year 3 I became Fan of Kingdoms Triad.
I'd have to check my book. Let me
let
me get that.
That took like 30
real quick.
Oh my god!
It's a new record. Let's see. Where are you, Britt?
Who are the editors on that?
Shameless.
Yeah.
Shameless.
Britt replaced Doug August of 2003.
Wow, that's very specific.
Well, we lost this vid.
Yep.
Hopefully, we did not lose
There, how about that?
We're good.
Yep.
We're good.
After that, you start, if you weren't aware, you, as a Triad member or a Circle member, you lose the ability to play in the regions you oversee. So I stopped being able to play very much, but we traveled a lot, and Dyvers was our nearest neighbor. Well, Yeomanry, but they don't count.
There were some good Yeomanry stuff.
There was. I'm just giving.
Yeah, but we were a straight shot up the highway. Like it was an interstate all the way there.
Well, that's because you were in Oklahoma, Britt.
Yeah, exactly. I had Fayetteville just like an hour and a half away, so that was also really close. And then okay, Casey, check that red book again. Year 5, year 6.
When you became IU's assistant?
I was assistant, yeah.
January of 2006.
Okay. So then 2007 and 2008, I was Circle member, I guess.
November 2006.
Ooh, I killed him off pretty fast.
Was that Bullman or Tulok?
Tulok, actually. So Bowman was I believe the first IU's meta-regional coordinator, Circle member. And then Chris Tulok took over for him. Then I became an assistant to him, which really didn't mean anything other than I helped edit things.
Right.
And then I took over as Circle member at the end of that year, and then I had to stop playing completely at that point. I remember there was one convention we traveled to. I don't remember if it was Dyvers or not, that I got up to level 18, like right there, the very last convention before I became Circle member. And that was
back when you could get to level 18. Britt,
What?
I only have one
People
question.
couldn't?
Yeah, I only have one question for you after hearing all that. So Jason Bullman went on to write Pathfinder for Paizo. Chris Tulok runs the RPGA for Wizards of the Coast. What are you doing with your gaming life? What are you doing? Fill us in. Why are you in Korea? No, why are you in Korea?
Okay, I'm in Korea because, well, one, my wife's Korean, so that helps a little bit. 2, I'm a professor at a university here, and based on writing, I'd say I'm making stuff up. I don't know, what's our language policy here?
Oh,
you could, go ahead. It's okay.
Yeah, so I'm making up shit for classes. You guys, the 2 guys that know me the best there can laugh at this one. I teach a Korean language and cultures class. Or sorry, Korean culture mainly, culture and history. I teach English, which that one kind of makes sense. I teach some discussion and debate. I teach some international student stuff. I have another couple of classes that I just made up that I teach as well.
Cool.
Nothing wrong with that, man.
No, it's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, for gaming. Gaming right now, all I really do is I do a bunch of modding in No Man's Sky.
Really?
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a space exploration video game.
That's what you get for crashing your controller on the driveway. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's okay. It's PC too.
Yeah, it's what, it came out about 2 years ago.
A little over 3.
Okay.
November, I think it was. Of
Check
So,
check
like,
your book,
3.5?
Casey. When did No Man's Sky come out?
yeah.
First off,
That's
Wrong
that's
book.
funny, Joe. That was good. So Christoph is on, saying hello to everyone. Hello, Gary. Hello, everyone else.
Christoph.
Thank
Yeah.
you
Gary.
for the massive crowd coming on already.
Britt, Gary Holian, one of the authors of the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, is in the chat.
Yes, on
Yeah,
Pluffet's
I remember.
measure. So
Yeah.
Hello, Gary. I can't see the chat for some reason. Oh well.
we'll relay to we'll relay you questions that come out and
Yeah.
stuff.
And I just have to very quickly say I'm so sorry to Rob Coons because that was a name I couldn't remember in the intro here. So I'm so sorry because it was an awesome. I had two days to hang out with Rob Coons. It was awesome fun, and that was my re-entry into old school gaming, and it was properly done. I was just like Britt and Joe said that. Well, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, that's how we did it 20 years ago or 15 years ago or something. So that was fun.
Yeah, Britt, the chat is at Twitch, so just make sure. I thought.
Yeah, it just says connecting.
Oh,
I
you
got
should,
logged in.
Oh,
fine.
yeah. You have
Yeah.
to refresh your page.
yeah, try refreshing it. That may be the thing that's messed up is that it's not refreshing for you where you are. I mean, I'm not sure if it should be an issue there or not, but definitely if you try refreshing it, and if you can't get to it, we'll keep you abreast as to what's going on, and then if you do see it, sometimes it gets stuck. So it's just crazy the ins and outs of Twitch. So welcome, Britt. Thank you. Get those try and get those get that resolved, and we'll move forward from there. Joe, welcome back.
Hi, thank you. Do you want me to do a background again?
Sure, absolutely,
All right.
because we got a lot of new viewers since GaryCon Virtual. So yeah,
Sure. So there's some wonderful symmetry here because Britt became Triad because Chris Tulloch became the organized play manager for WotC. He and I actually applied for that job at the same time. We flew out together, and it was that interview that had my current job to keep me said, okay, we're going to move you out to the East Coast. So my life ended up out here because of Chris as well, because he got that job and I didn't. So I did not move out to Seattle. I was the Triad member for Dyvers from late 2004 until 2006, which is a relatively short time in the span of a lot of the people that have been and will be on to discuss their tenure in Dyvers. In that time, I wrote 28 adventures, mostly at the regional level, but also at the meta regional and core level. I was responsible for, at least in 2005, that was our like the 5-year arc, the big finale for the first part of the campaign. I wrote almost everything that year, including the meta orgs, etc. So that's why I didn't last too far into 2006. I burnt myself out really fast. I also had to obviously move my character out of Dyvers, and he was so ill a fit for everywhere else. I just moved him back and paid the out of region cost just so I could behave like I was from Dyvers and people wouldn't judge. I also stream. I am very new to it. I started talking about this. I've been so excited for this discussion that Jay came onto my stream last week, and I started telling all the stories I'd been saving up for.
You
this
did.
week.
It was awesome, though. You were natural.
Yeah, well, but yeah, now it's all. But yeah, so I. There are also already a lot of questions coming up, but I want to let you lead the conversation. But yeah, that's me. I played pretty much until I moved out here. This Bissell wasn't the same fit as the Midwest, and I did the whole convention circuit when I lived in the Midwest. Verbabonk, Valuna, all the rest. So I kind of weaned myself out of role playing. Board games were really big out here at the time, and still are. Although, thanks to our previous conversation and the coronavirus, I am on an online role-playing game now with Casey as my DM. So that's been really exciting.
No, that's cool. So that is that's your 5e Saltmarsh.
Yeah.
This is this is the Essentials kit I picked up on a whim when it was on sale because it has a coupon in it for 50% off the player's handbook on D&D Beyond, which is pretty pricey. And I just wanted to see what was in it. And it's actually set Don't Kill Me in the Forgotten Realms. But it's neat. It's quest-based. It's semi-sandbox. It's neatly written. And I thought I wanted to run something during the coronavirus self-quarantine on Roll20 that would be very low maintenance, very low prep. So something I could just open up and be like, here you go, make some first level characters and go. Whereas my monthly Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign has some home rules. You know, it runs like 8 or 9 hours one Saturday a month. And it's pretty crazy at this point. We've got 9 player characters in that, 9 humans. I know that Jay's used to the big tables, but his players are often playing 2 or 3 characters. I've got 9 humans arguing with each other and now doing it on Discord. So that's been a learning curve.
But it's a fun one. You know, that's the thing. I love managing multiple characters and having big parties, and that's a good thing, though, Casey. And you know, kudos to you for doing it.
Old school, Jay. You're old school. That's how you did it back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have large parties and multiple characters.
Exactly, not 2 characters.
Henchmen.
Henchmen and torchbearers with the red shirts on, like in Star Trek. You know, they're gonna just ask Tim. So thank you. We're going to really delve into the Dyvers discussion tonight, especially while we have Britt here. I got a question from the blogger David Leonard. I'll post up a lot of links tonight. Who or what was the big bad in Diver throughout? It's just a general question. Let's start with that, and then we'll go to some more specifics. But
sure,
because normally he has to leave early too, so because of his work schedule. So,
and really curious about that too. Yeah.
So we had a larger amount of turnover than a lot of regions. Like all 3 triad for the first year left after the first year. And then we had people for year 2 and 3, and then all of them left, and then 4 and all of them left. So our year 5 arc was abandoned in the middle of year 3, and we built a new one at the end of year 4, beginning of year 5 when I came on. So for those first few years, you had a few bad guys, but never a big bad. What ended up happening that really kind of solidified a series of arch villains that could be a meta opponent, so they would appear in more than one adventure, began with the disappearance of Magister Larissa Hunter, who was the equivalent of a governor for the city. And that created a power vacuum. She was a very charismatic fighter, a war hero, for as organizationally corrupt as the city was. She was just a very beloved figurehead because she was not corrupt, but she didn't try to force the city into being something it wasn't. So she was just the perfect leader. Go ahead.
Did they try looking for her at the Temple of Elemental Evil?
No, they did not. We were not allowed to ever use the temple ever. And so we had 6 large gentry houses. So they were the wealthy politics. And what happened in year 5 was effectively a civil war. We had the fortress of Westguard in the west, Eastguard in the east, and each county. So you have the free city and land, the independent city and free lands of Dyvers is the whole name to make it even longer. And so each major noble controlled their own county. And with the power vacuum in the city itself, Eastguard and Westguard marched on the city with each of their lords kind of declaring themselves the protector. And there was a really large interactive where you had some 200 players who had to choose how they wanted to let the dominoes fall.
That sounds like some Game of Thrones stuff right there. Wow.
It was fantastic. Well, and so one of the hallmarks that we really tried to work on was creating options without telling the players that they had options, because a really big pet peeve of mine is just railroading someone down a plot that you want, but also just kind of making it a video game where they have to pick their selections. So you could side with Westguard, you could side with Eastguard, or you could side with neither. And you could actually just help the constabulary suppress the entire Civil War and leave the city leaderless. And by vast majority, that's what all the players did. So that was really cool. That political weakness, because one of the lords tried to actually make us subservient to Furyandi, that was a really big thing, since Furyandi was also a playable region. And that man got murdered. And so then we went out, Big Six went to Big Five, but that kind of turmoil started this domino effect of then Turash Mac got involved for later years. And then the Earth Dragon got involved after that. And then the campaign ended. Yeah, so Turash Mac had been the primary villain in the Principality of Ulek?
Yeah, and
right?
the Pomars and the Slavers. And
Yeah,
the whole,
but Ulek was a playable region. So for the first 3-4 years, they were using Mac as their big villain. And then they got kind of bored with it. And so we just kind of accepted behind the scenes that he had been stymied there. But he runs a war horde. Your war horde needs to be at war or it falls apart. So he turns north, and that's the Gnarly Forest. So that brought Mac to us. He was eventually repulsed, but then we were brought low, and so while we couldn't use the Temple of Elemental Evil, we could use the Earth Dragon.
Joe, let me ask you a quick question about that.
Yes.
Did you coordinate with the Ulek Triad and say get his stats, the size of his army, anything like that, or did you all just wing it based on your own canon research once you took him over?
We got permission to use him. We wanted to make sure they were never going to use him again. Which they agreed to, but then we did it really cool and they wanted him back. But it was too late by then. We went more off of the published material because they didn't really have any of that information. They had used him in a very adventure by adventure rather than arch villain kind of thing. Like he was this elemental force that wasn't necessarily appearing in the adventures himself. So they didn't have a lot of stats of how big is your army, that kind of thing. Whereas we ended up building a southern fortress called Southguard, and we had a whole thing. Oh, and we briefly went to war with IUs. I was reading
briefly.
So here's the thing. We were not in any way allowed to use the city of Greyhawk, which was very frustrating because our main rival is Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when you want to go to war with Greyhawk, but you can't go to war with Greyhawk? You start a trade war. So one of the big early events in the region is the Great Dock Fire, where thousands of people died. And through an adventure written by another Triad member, Kevin Elmore, we discovered that agents of IUs had been the ones that had caused the fire. So we're like, okay, well, let's go stick it to that guy. We go to the Shield Lands and say, we're going to support you with our entire Navy and Army to retake Admin Fort. And then we're immediately going to cede the island. We're going to make no claim to it whatsoever for promises of exclusive trading deals. So you have to stop trading with Greyhawk. And so our plan to not go to war with Greyhawk, all the other surrounding regions on the near div were all playable regions. So we were just going to start a trade war to screw over Greyhawk. But then that, like we actually had one of my favorite interactives ever across regional with the Shield Lands, but we didn't really have time to do it with Furyandi and all the rest. So it never really came to fruition.
That was my next question. How much coordination did you do with the Shield Lands?
So much coordination. That took months and months and months of planning. Because we came to them with the idea, and so it was really organic from our side. We had wanted to do a cross regional, but we wanted it to be practical. Like we could have done something in the Gnarly Forest with Verberbonk, but we hadn't really developed the Gnarly the way they had, so it would have felt kind of forced. And this felt like it would let us do our theme against Greyhawk. It would give them something new to play with, which they did. They ended up using admin for it after that. But it was effectively our idea. And so we really did most of the legwork. But you have to get buy-in across everything, right? And learn about the region. I had never gone to the Shieldlands, so I had to learn what was appropriate.
What a bizarre alliance, Dyvers and Shieldlands. Brett, what are your thoughts about all that with the antithesis and the alliances and or the organize you had to do after the fact to get approval?
I think that happened just before I was Circle member, so I didn't have to do a lot with that. But later, Casey can say we did work with the Shieldlands on Admin Fort again.
Okay.
And we worked on them on a few adventures as well. They were really good at being cooperative on cross-regional stuff, for sure.
That's what they said. That's what was discussed in the last Living Greyhawk episode we had, which was Verbalbank and the Shieldlands, and we get some good information. So,
of course, my idea of collaborating with the Shieldlands would be that our players get to go and attack their players while they're characters, not player-on-player combat, because that would be stupid. But that's what the BK used to do, was raid the Shieldlands. But obviously, with the IU storylines, it just made sense for everyone to fight IUs.
Yeah, the Bandit Kingdoms, we've talked about this before. The Bandit Kingdoms never should have been a region. It doesn't work as a region. I think we made it work, but the whole concept of it is for it to not be an organized thing, and then you want to make 8 years eventually of organized play around it. So it's a little weird.
The average alignment of the NPCs, according to the folio, is chaotic neutral with evil tendencies in the Bandit Kingdoms. And when you tell the players of Living Greyhawk, Eric Moan actually said this, I believe, this is supposed to be a heroic campaign, but you're allowed to play neutral alignments. Joe sees it in Dyvers that they had chaotic neutral as a strong backbone, and we had a chaotic neutral, and we wanted to encourage the Bandit Kingdom's flavor, and that was basically that you would sell out your mother to save yourself.
Yeah, and that was Itza, right? I mean, Itza was chaotic evil or chaotic neutral?
Technically chaotic neutral. I did enough. I towed that line very, very closely.
That's funny.
And if you look in an adventure, there is like this background that's just boilerplate information. Then there is just general background for the region, and then background for the scenario. And we actually changed the language where rather than saying, "Hey, this is supposed to be a heroic campaign," it said most regions are heroic, but not all of them. The absolute best decision the first child of Dyvers made was to say, it is completely unreasonable to expect heroes to emerge in Dyvers, at least not the heroes in the traditional sense. They would eventually run afoul of the Alliance and be removed. Like the Alliance holds the real power in the city. The Alliance is an evil organization. There were parts of it that the players were never allowed to cooperate with, like the slavers. So you really had to learn to toe that line of, do you sell out your mother? And the answer is, of course, how much are you offering? The line that we used that Jay really liked was blood or gold is thicker than blood.
I love that. That's a Zilchus saying, if there is one. Michael Baton is already taking it over. So
yeah. So there were a few key decisions made early on that were the only reason we really kept the flavor of the region. One was, that gold is thicker than blood. Two is there was a chart at the time that based on how big you were, your cities would determine how high level of like a priest you would have. We were the only region to start the campaign with an 18th level priest. He was the high priest of Zerbo, and he did not give a shit about the players.
True neutral.
His cathedral was a ship. If he didn't want to be there, he sailed out onto the near div. Just because you had an 18th level cleric didn't mean you got to reference an 18th level cleric. You are a small cog in a really big machine. So there was never any of that. Oh, we're going to get to take advantage of everything. The first year adventures were basically the powerful people messing with the players. Like, hey, you're going to go test the security on my house, and if you don't do it, I'm going to have you thrown into jail on false charges because I'm the guild master of this college and I can do that. That was our first year adventures. And then the last great decision was a lot of regions have very smaller cities. So like in Q-Land, they had decided that all the players were a representation of a small band of adventurers that actually lived there. So they only had 12 to 20 adventurers in their region, even though you had hundreds of players. Whereas in our region, every adventurer was an adventurer in the city. Our city size was 49,000 people. It would actually grow much larger throughout the campaign. And so everyone was a real person, and that really kind of allowed for adventurers to become kind of a societal class type. You had your artisans, you had your professionals, you had your soldiers, and you had your adventurers, and everyone got to be whoever they wanted within the restrictions of the campaign. And the campaign said, don't be evil. And so that was where we drew the line. And like you said, the BK shouldn't have been a region. Valuna actually often, their triad said they shouldn't be a region because the Church of Rao was so dominant and so powerful, they didn't feel they had a need for adventurers. The church could just solve everything. And so they struggled in their first year, really trying to figure out where adventurers were going to fit in. We had a kindred nature with the BK, because I was friends with Britt, obviously, but they were one of those non-good regions, and there weren't very many of us. So that really kind of created a brotherhood among us, just because we had that similar tone.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun when I went to, I think it was Rogue Con in July 21st, 2006. I still have this adventure record. I got 2 of them, one for each of my characters. I think I was running BK adventures the rest of the time.
What adventure was it, if you can tell me?
Sure. I have here Dyvers 501 setting in the West at APL 6.
Yeah.
Got no access, some favors. And then Dyvers 605 Black as Night, APL 14. So that must have been when my primary character was 12th to 16th level or 15th level.
Brett, how much did you take part in the cons? Did you do a lot with that as well, as much as Joe? Or?
I definitely did a lot, and some of those were with Joe and with Casey. Although Casey and we played together more before I became Triad, because I was up in Tulsa and northeastern corner of Oklahoma. He was down in College Station down in southern part of Texas. So we weren't really close for road trips to neighboring regions. But Joe was just a couple of hours away. So we would drive up there all the time and have conventions up there. We have, do you remember what the name of that adventure was that we played together? I think it was the first time we played together, Joe.
Yes. It was A Dish Best Served Cold.
That sounds right. Yeah.
That was the one where you go into the sewers, but if you actually do the math, the sewers are bigger than a small city.
We had not a particular.
It was me, you, and Chad LaMontagne, who was the Triad for Verbabonk.
Oh yes, I remember that too.
And I was this little bitty 1st or 2nd level rogue, and here comes Britt on his charger with a lance, destroying everything.
Oh.
I was like, wow.
Storm-related emergency for Mike. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that Gumsk?
Oh.
Yeah,
that would have been Gumsk. Yeah.
Oh,
but I never did take I never took advantage of that leap charge.
Leap attack.
Bullshit. Oh no, there was a combination that you could do that was just stupid. It was obviously manipulating the multipliers invalidly.
I feel like it was leap attack, but
I think, but it was leap
the
attack.
one I pissed Chris Tulloch off with during the play test when I flew up to Wisconsin or wherever that was, and played the High Folk mod with Greg Marks.
I'm sorry, I got to ask this question, Casey. You've pissed off every single person you've talked about in living Greyhawk, but when you came to my house, you were a complete gentleman, and you didn't piss me off a single time.
Well, I'm older. Your wife,
okay.
Your wife fed me. Your cats liked me.
Okay.
But primarily, I'm just older, and I'm a little bit less.
Okay.
Yeah, you never pissed me
He
off.
wasn't an authority figure at the time, probably. I'm sure.
Well, I mean, that's true. We used to have a thing once I got rolling on the BK Triad about Triad Pizza, because we would be so busy at conventions running adventures and just taking care of, you get so many questions. You get everyone coming up and asking you questions about things that happened 3 years ago, because they're trying to figure out how it impacts their character. And you never have time to just sit down and eat at a convention when you're in charge of it. So we used to order, pizza had come in, and next thing you know, it's been sitting there for 2 hours, and you look over and there are people sneaking up and eating your damn pizza
Oh, I hate that.
while you're running adventures. And we eventually just have to threaten them with, we'll kill your character if you eat another slice of our pizza.
Yeah, or the no, because everyone wants something, right? And so you're at a convention. I actually organized the one in St. Louis. So the one Britt was at, I was one of the organizers as well. And so you're standing there and you just hear Joe, and eventually you just have to say, like, holding up your finger, and they're like, I wanted to know if I could. Like, no,
I'll be back.
I have no idea what the rest of your question is, but it's probably a ridiculous request. And no is just, I have not eaten for 2 days. Shut up and let me go over there. I left 2 hours ago trying just to cross this room so I could get a burrito. And yeah, it is insane.
I don't know how we didn't all end up like Tulok, as much as you walk around and don't get to eat and everything during those conventions.
Yeah, that man lost like 120 pounds.
Yeah, and being Triad at the same time, where you're having to answer both sets of questions, it was a nightmare.
But it was a fun nightmare. That's why we did it.
We wouldn't go back and say, I don't want to do that. Like, this is.
Oh yeah,
so
it's
cool.
it's great memories. It's great memories. So by the way, got everyone. Mike had there must be a storm going through, so he had to hop off. I will put him. He hops back on. I will put him back in. I just wanted to spread it out a little bit. Here, 2 questions from the audience. Let's get to the easy one and the tough one. So Seeker of Oblivion ask about the gelatinous cubes in Dyvers, and then. Christoph really asked one, the Dyvers Town and City project.
I had forgotten about the gelatinous cubes. Oh my God. They were our sanitation. Gelatinous cubes are how we kept the sewers clean. Oh my God. It was actually a crime to kill the gelatinous cubes.
Have you seen the movie Onward yet?
I have not. No.
Watch it.
Oh, see, thank you for that memory. I had completely, the very first time we had someone in year 1, they were visiting from another region, and they got fined for killing a cube, and they were yelling. Because money, like, we didn't give a lot of money out. For being such a wealthy city, we didn't give shit for rewards for years. And so one of them lost money on the adventure after their fines. You're on mute, Britt. I see your mouth moving. Unless you're not talking to me. Yeah, we really were stingy. God, I loved the gelatinous cubes. Lundeen, who was on the last time, I think he brought this up. The most evil trap ever was the dual cube trap. Did you guys talk about that?
No, I don't.
No, we didn't talk about that.
Classic 10-foot pit trap, right? Has a gelatinous cube.
Oh,
but the ceiling is also
yeah.
And the second cube falls on top of you.
The gelatinous cube sandwich. Yes. It sounds like a Tim trap. Sorry, Tim, if you're on. But oh wow, that's nasty.
Yeah, I lost money on more than one adventure too. I'm sorry, Jay. What was the other question?
The Dyvers City project. And
right. So the city project came, or really the town project. The reason why we called it the city and town project is because you could actually take residency in the city. We had one-room apartments. So this was all built on what Vernon Vincent did. He and I were really close friends. He said, I'm doing this thing. I said, that's genius. I want it. And so we had Calteran and Maravin, which were our two largest villages. Tricaster was like the very first village you ever visit in the campaign, and then a couple others that players made. Like Liberty was where the anti-slavers, they were a meta organization, and all the players just said, we want our own village that we can bring freed slaves to, like the Underground Railroad. And so we modeled it after Verberbank's design, where you would have to pay money, you'd get a house. Greyhawk had a lifestyle cost, and if you invested in a home, then you didn't have to pay lifestyle, I think was one of the rewards. But if you wanted to claim Dyvers proper as your home, you got an apartment, basically, was what happened. Most of that was after I was done, and most of it was Michael Mokus, who was started as Triad while I was there, and really took over my job when I left. And then Vernon did so much of that heavy lifting.
He really did. It was amazing, and we took bits and pieces of it for the BK. One of the things, the mechanical underpinnings of Living Greyhawk, I felt like, or third edition, they had lifestyle, but you didn't have the apartments and living in houses and stuff until that was slapped on top of the campaign through certed rewards or Vernon's project, or as Joe mentioned, their project. And it's weird because you had characters who could make magic items. Where the hell were they doing this? You know, they didn't own property for many years, but they were allowed to have labs, you know. So it was just a weird artifact of the Living campaign sometimes. You know, in a home game, you would just say, hey, we killed this guy. Let's take over his house and, you know, or take his boat. But in Living Greyhawk, you didn't own anything unless it was documented on the accounting paperwork.
There's a lot of slashes through that paper that I see.
We must have done something just stupid.
No, maybe no. We all have that.
I got influence points with the Temple of Nerul in this adventure, so we really did something stupid.
Oh my gosh, that's
Also,
pretty good.
I think we did something awesome.
So the Temple of Nerul was part in the campaign, because that was in the Gord books. I think it was described. Gary wrote about the Temple of Nerul, Cult Nerul in Dyvers. Oh, the Knight Errant, I think it is one of the books. It's
possible.
And Joe, this is from 605, Black as Night.
Oh, I was looking at the year 5. I'm like, if it's the year 5 one, you actually, year 5 is when we started the whole, you had to pick a side. So a lot of this stuff was just crossed out because you were picking which side of the thing you wanted to be.
Right.
Cool. All right. So.
Oh yeah, you didn't get Greyhawk's favor. That's good, because we would have hated you.
So Britt, Christoph asks, what's the difference between the Dyvers City Guard and the Free Army? Is there a difference?
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, so you got to remember, Britt was Triad for BK, not for Dyvers. He played there a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's okay.
Oh,
I
bad.
But sorry, Britt's here because he was a circle member too, and he can talk about that stuff.
Oh, my apologies. See.
yeah.
I
So, but
necessary.
it sounds exactly like what it is. The City Guard was the City Guard, and the Army did not exist inside the city. The Army was controlled by the 6 or later 5 great nobles. So the Army were professional soldiers that lived in the counties that kept the lands free, but had no purview within the city limits. And that was actually why the Civil War was such a big deal, because the armies marched on the city and they didn't belong there. The City Guard were the constabulary. They were the ones that maintained the status quo. Like if you broke a law, you paid your fine to the guy that catches you, not to like the government or anything.
It almost sounds like the People's Constables of Greyhawk. Sorry to make that analogy.
No, so the younger brother of one of our other triad, Cameron Maddie, you could actually join the constabulary, and the highest inside the Meta-Org player was Cameron Maddie's dwarf. And him, my character, and his brother's wizard were just a trio of toe the line. Are you sure you're not evil? And there was an adventure where we had to go, and you had to start by hauling a piano or something, but they didn't give you a wagon, and none of us, of course, wanted to spend the money on a wagon, which is what the author had expected. So Cam's sergeant goes over and demands to see some trader's permit for his business, and the thing doesn't exist. There's no permit, but he just role plays the shit out of it, right? And he ends up confiscating the guy's wagon as a punishment. So then we we got ourselves a wagon for the rest of the adventure. And I'm like, that was such the perfect Dyvers police thing to do, because that's exactly how the city worked. If you're used to playing heroic characters, my love for this region will seem really out of place, but it was so purely gray. I actually I converted my old character to 5th edition, and one of the things I love about 5th edition is how they let you kind of define ethics and backgrounds and commitments, and you have to kind of describe yourself. And I had to articulate in as few words as possible the kind of character it was, and I called him a philosopher assassin, because it was always a measure of what is good and what is evil. So neutral just isn't ambiguity, it's like a balance. Sometimes you're bad, sometimes you're good, right? And so you live in a world where you can bring people back from the dead, and you have a world where you can regenerate body parts. So we're interrogating someone, and I stuck the guy's hand in a black ooze and disintegrated it, but then I spent all the money to have it regenerated, right? So it's like, oh my god, that's evil. I'm like, yeah, but
I feel better.
Yeah, it's like I did it without his consent, which is wrong. I caused him pain, which was wrong, but there was no lasting damage to that man whatsoever, and we got the information we needed to go in and save other people's lives. So yeah, bad, but also good. Dyvers, right in the middle.
Joe, let me jump in and ask Joe a question. What did you know about Dyvers before you started playing Living Greyhawk?
Nothing. Absolutely. I didn't know Greyhawk. So I came up in Forgotten Realms.
That's right.
So I wasn't allowed to play D&D. So my very first time playing was before you used books. It was just like storytelling. The guy that ran my very first adventure, I was 7. He had the books, and so he knew, but we didn't have a character sheet or anything. We didn't roll dice. So the very first real campaign I got was in college, and they played Forgotten Realms. So it wasn't until I joined Living Greyhawk that I even knew what Greyhawk was, much less Dyvers. And it was in my very first adventure where I had to pay a fine to this guy, this police officer, and go, and now what? He's like, no, you're free to go. That's awesome. And the hook got in me so fast.
Pay to fine and move on.
Yes.
Money talks even in D&D games, right? And that's what's a cool thing.
Yeah. And that was always there are a lot of things your character might not be able to do, like look for clues, being subtle. So the most valuable guild in the Alliance to the players was the Street Urchins Guild. So the children that rob you on the street are an organized guild in Dyvers, because of course they are. If you get a message and you don't tip that kid, you are so screwed later. But what you can also do is you get stuck, because we had lots of investigations, because we had rogues out the wazoo. The running joke was we were the cockroach region, because if you turn on the lights, 5 of the 6 PCs would disappear. It was not uncommon for all 6 players to have sneak attack dice, including the paladin. The paladin would have sneak attack with their lance, which was the best. They started as a rogue, and then they became a paladin, so that you could do that, right? You can lose your paladin abilities if you start as a paladin and then go to rogue. But if you go the other way around,
if you're a reformed rogue who goes to church, you can still sneak attack.
I had a Paladin of St. Cuthbert centered in Dyvers.
There you go.
I played with you, Joe. I know a few times.
Yeah. So you'd get stuck because maybe you're from out of region and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to investigate. We just hit things with sticks. You're like, okay, I look for a little kid. There's a little kid. Hey, little kid, I need this information. Here's some money. It was written into the adventures that would work. That was how you would actually successfully investigate if you did not have the skills yourself. And so that kind of institutionalized crime that was actually still advantageous to the player if they knew how to do it was our hallmark.
So I want to ask Brett something here about like memories as far as with connections with those groups. I mean, do you have anything that really sticks out? Like, wow, man, that was just so momentous, especially when the interrelations with the other regions. What do you think?
Well, for relations with the other regions, we had that crossover that I was talking about with the Shield Lands. Casey, I think, was running it down in Texas. Is that right?
No, I don't recall that one. The County of Ernst.
Oh, County of Ernst.
County of Ernst. We did up in the Panhandle with JP.
And then I was over. Oh no, I'm talking about the one. I think it was Shieldlands. I was over in Oklahoma City or something. Somebody was down in Dallas. Somebody in Houston, and we were doing them all at the same time.
Well, there was one where we ran a interactive simultaneously with Oklahoma City and College Station. But I don't know if that's the one you're referencing. Are you talking about Patrick's Shadow Orcs, the island one in year 2 or 3? Yeah, that was. I was just a player, so I just remember everyone like messing that one up and having to run from the Iusians. Yeah.
So for those, it's those like trying to coordinate simultaneous or even just in the same location on a border. They get pretty complicated, and luckily we actually had decent neighbors. We didn't have too many ego problems, which sometimes with gamers you can get quite a bit of that. But everybody kind of got along pretty well.
Yeah, we did a crossover with the yeomanry, at least one. In Shreveport, I think it was. Sorry, Stella was wanting to say hi. Get on out of here, Demon Cat.
Well, I'm glad to see you guys got a lot of connection, with other. That's kind of the cool thing I think about the whole Living Greyhawk was the crossovers. I mean, that really just sounds so much fun.
And I think Living Greyhawk should have had more of that built into its chassis. One of my biggest complaints is that they didn't do meta orgs at what we call a meta regional level. Multiple regions would be part of one meta region, like Bandit Kingdoms, High Folk, Parent Land, Shield Lands, and Furiundi. So you didn't have any church-wide memberships that anyone, they were all different no matter what region you were in. And then nationwide, some of these religions should have been Flaness wide. And there just wasn't that built into the chassis. So all of the coordination happened between the triad members. And sometimes other triads didn't have time for it, didn't like the idea, had their own ideas in mind. But when it happened, it could be on a small scale. We did a special mission with Teos, who was a Joff region player and author, and would frequently travel to the Bandit Kingdoms for work. Well, there was a Jeff mod where you could interact with Fae and end up having some sort of Fae child. And we had a Bandit Kingdoms player travel to Virginia, play in this adventure, end up with the Fae child, and came back to me and asked me to write a special mission so he could visit the kid in the Unseelie or Seelie realm or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. That's the Jeff thing. So I reached out to Teos and said, hey, what's this all about? And he co-wrote a special mission with me that we ran for one player, I think it was. I don't even think it was a table. It may have been one table. But that kind of coordination would be really amazing. But that was just one instance. And, we couldn't do that for everyone, unfortunately.
So how about Mike? Everything okay there?
Yeah, we had a small pole fall down across the street. Luckily, one of the big poles. Otherwise, my house would be wrecked.
Oh man, that's good to hear.
Wow.
Definitely good to hear.
Yeah, your camera looked wobbly there for like a minute before.
Oh,
you
that's
left.
because I'm on a laptop.
Gotcha. I was like, and then I saw that it was like, oh, yeah.
So we got some more questions for the audience, but Anna, Mike, come on, man. You guys have been. I know, Mike, you weren't here, but you guys have some questions for our three guests.
I don't have a question, but I have a quick thing to get out of the way before I forget. If you go to Greyhawk Online, Christoph has Living Greyhawk Tusmet on there.
Oh, cool.
So I'm sure a lot of
linked
people
that
here
online.
probably never looked at that stuff before, but it's worth checking out, I guess.
Awesome. At least we're getting there with getting content back on, and then so Joe, all the stuff that we have now is that able to be put somewhere, or is it better off not going there?
So there's some old website stuff that I gave Christoph the right contact information for permission. It's older. It's the beginning of campaign rather than the end. Stuff like the adventures, there's some copyright stuff that would probably be an issue. But that's a conversation for off stream. But it's a starting point, at least, that you guys can work through.
Okay, Anna, how about you?
I have one question as a cartographer. Is there a good map of Dyvers? Did the Triad kind of created a more detailed map of the city?
Yes, in fact, it is absurdly accurate down to the street level.
Okay.
We referenced that document or that.
Let me flip this.
I think I even have a larger bitmap of it.
This one?
Yeah. So that was created in year 1 or year 2.
Wow.
And there's a larger version of it. This was actually what burned out one of the original Triad, because this is down to the street level. This entire thing was made for the campaign. And we during the Civil War, we would go block by block on this map for some of the portions of it. So yeah, this is, and then we also have a regional map that show the different counties that go, because we are more than just a city, but only barely. So we have another one that shows the divisions of the counties, because we need all those, etc.
Did Fate of Istis not have a map of Dyvers in it?
Mm-mm.
Huh.
Slavers is the one I pull most of my Dyvers. Is it Dyvers? Once again, myself, I say everything wrong, right? So is it Dyvers or is it Dyvers?
Dyvers.
Okay, so Casey's wrong in this case. That's fine.
Probably. Gary said something interesting in a chat the other night. If you say Dyvers, then it should be the near dive.
Oh, here we go again.
Right? I say near div.
It is
Dyvers.
near div.
So I say, well, but if it's div, shouldn't it be Dyvers?
No, because there's 2 different words.
Thank you, Joe.
And then I think he also said Nyrond, so it should be Ny Dive or something like that. The NYR should be the same in both.
Not near.
I like Dyvers because it's like die.
Well, so I actually already put this joke in chat, but what is a person from Dyvers? They're a diversion. That was a real thing. That's what they're called. It's a joke, but that, if anyone needed an elevator pitch, that could be a diversion.
Wow. That's crazy.
Did we ever come up with a name that was better than BKer?
No, I think we all just referred to BKers. I don't think we
been a
ever
Whopper,
came up with
obviously.
anything. A what?
A Whopper.
Burger King.
Walk me. Yeah, I get it. Well.
Yeah, very.
Okay, right, got it. Right.
Comedy gold tonight.
Yeah.
You have a lot of history and a lot of memories, which seem to be all good. Here's one that another one Christoph kind of asked was, at convention peaks, we may have talked about that. How many people were playing, and how did you get new players involved in it right up to the end? Were there people just still that were just coming in left and right, or was it from word of mouth, or how that happened? Britt, you want to handle that one?
I can talk about it some. I did less of the coordination at the end.
Okay.
I think that would have been the other 2 guys. But,
Okay.
I did more back end stuff on the last couple of years. But before that, we definitely did some convention coordination. We had one in Tulsa every winter that averaged, I think, 250, maybe 300 players for the
Wow.
weekend.
Was that BK Con Queso?
Yeah, BK Con Queso. Some of the smaller ones, they could be as few as 6 people, literally, or 5 people, really, I guess, 4 in the judge.
But not at a hotel.
But no, not usually. When you have, like, let's say people do a road trip to play games out of region, and they have like 12 games they're going to get through in the weekend, and they're just going to stay up all night and sit in the hotel room, or maybe go down to the breakfast nook or whatever. Then you're looking at usually 12 to 20 people. A frequent convention, one that's, an annual convention, you're probably looking at 50 minimum, I would say.
Oh, at least, yeah.
A decent sized regional, you're looking at 100, 150, I would guess. And then up to, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And of those, you'd have events where, say, 120 people were playing simultaneously the exact same adventure, what we call an interactive.
That is just unbelievably awesome.
So you would have, I think we've talked about this before, in the slot zeros where we would, or play tests, where the author runs the adventure for the future dungeon masters and judges, so that they can play their characters in it, and also it gives them a feel for what the adventure is supposed to be like. And then it gets a little editing or a little tweaking based on that. And then they then go off and run it at the convention for their own tables of 6. Living Greyhawk had a maximum of 6 players per table, unless there were weird extenuating circumstances. Like I ran a table of 12 people once, but it was really 2 separate tables of 6 because one of the judges got sick, and I didn't want these people to not have anything to do. It was at an Alcon. So I said, I will run this adventure for 2 tables simultaneously, and did that. But during these interactives, we would easily have 120 at our biggest events. And some of them we would do round by round. And we would say, okay, tables, roll initiative. This is round 1. Judges, you have, 30 minutes or whatever. And we just walked them through the combat round by round. Others, it would be whatever. It's more of a LARP. Go walk around, go talk to people. And then all of a sudden a combat thing would happen and everyone would go back to their tables and do the combat, but they'd be in their own rounds. And sometimes they could go to other tables, or intermingle, get buff spells from a higher level table and then go back to theirs. But Joe, did you guys do a lot of that in Dyvers?
Yeah. So at the peak, our largest conventions were bringing in about 350 people. I was reading through some of the interactives I wrote today when I was sending out that documentation, and the cross regional interactive for us in the Shield lands, because it was an invasion, it was called a battle interactive. So interactives were just that. They were whatever kind of event you wanted to do. Brewfest in the early years was often an interactive kind of thing for Dyvers, but this was sustained combat. Just knowing going in, this is going to be a sustained combat kind of thing. And we had a few different rules. One was you needed to clear your region, so at your particular encounter, you couldn't just finish it and run on to the next encounter to preserve whatever active spells you have, because you need to clear the region. So if you chose to run forward, the encounter you just finished would actually repopulate and join the next encounter 1d6 rounds into that one. So it would just get exponentially worse. And then you could ask for help. So this is 2006, so only a few years into our time in Iraq, and I am flying to Omaha, still preparing for this event. And I'm sitting in my chair. I have stacks of cardboard, construction paper on my right down. I'm writing "help" in big letters, and then I look to the side, and the guy sitting next to me's eyes are this big, because I'm like, I'm not going to take over the plane. This is just a thing. So what you could do was you could hold up a sign and ask for help, and any other table could join you to assist, but if they were in the middle of an encounter as well, they would also suck in their own encounter, and so that eventually,
oh my gosh,
yeah, it ended
Yeah.
up causing a waterfall where we had a 24-person table with multiple DMs running it to keep everything going, because people were going to die, and so most of the time an interactive wasn't so rigid as a encounter by encounter kind of thing. But this one, we didn't announce like next encounter because people could get through an encounter at their own pace. But it also, like, everything kind of was spider webbed together. So it would link together. When we had our Civil War, there were times where I think I was role playing as the head of the constabulary. Maybe I don't actually remember who I was. I would stand up on a chair and start role playing out loud to all the different players. So that was basically a fixed event based on time. So regardless of where you were in your encounter, this thing in the city is happening, and you now have to deal with the events that are happening.
And Joe makes a good point. They didn't have to be combat oriented. Some of the best moments in Living Greyhawk, in my opinion, happened during an interactive when it wasn't combat related. We had an event one time where there were some encounters. This was an interactive. There were 12 tables or 15, 18 tables, 120 people, whatever it was. And they all went and did a thing. But afterwards, they all nominated one person from their table to come and recount their table's adventures in the front of the room. You know, and gamers can be shy, so not everyone wanted to do this. But we had some good stories. But then Thunk, the half-orc ranger, got up there and absolutely crushed it. Just slayed the room. This like intelligence 7 half-orc ranger, played by a friend of ours named David, got up there and told the funniest in-character 3 minutes recounting of what had just happened. And we had decided that the best storyteller was going to get like a certed piece of property in the Tangles Forest. I think it's called Borjed's Hunting Lodge, which is on Anna's map. That had been used in previous events and interactives, but was now empty. The owner had been killed by vampires, probably Thrommel or something.
That's not even funny, Casey. I knew you were going to throw that in.
But
I'm going to throw my little blurb in at the end of the show.
Okay.
You'll see what I'm talking about.
But because the player did such a good job, everyone voted for him. The players did, and said his character deserves to get this property. And for the rest of the campaign, it was Thunk's hunting lodge, and I think it may have made it onto Anna's map.
No,
as
it's
Thunk's.
not. But now it's an awesome story. Now I need to put it on the map.
It's not on there.
No, it's not. Yep.
Should be.
Yep. So we have to figure out where it is in the.
It's in the
forest.
Tangles, right? He said it was in the Tangles. So
Yeah, it's in the Tangles.
Yep.
The northwest edge of it. Is that right?
So it's somewhere near a
Yeah.
or somewhere.
If you have a copy of the old Eric Anonson modified maps I've sent you, like 10 or 10 years ago or so, it's probably buried on there.
Okay, so yep,
Yeah.
I'll.
Speaking of Shieldlanders, Eric Anonson was a Shieldlander triad who did great cartography for the
yeah,
campaign.
that was a huge inspiration for me going forward. So yep.
For the conventions, one thing I wanted to mention, because it came up a couple of times, and I saw a couple of people mention in chat that they have no idea what we're talking about with conventions like this, is that on these big weekends where you have like Friday to Sunday, or sometimes Wednesday or Thursday to Sunday games all day long, you can have hundreds of people, and you get tables of up to 6 players with 1 judge. And the problem is you have to organize all of this stuff. And because we've all done it, but we're not the ones I wanted to mention. It's the people who organize all that stuff in between, because you have 4-hour rounds to play a game. Sometimes you schedule 4.5. And then in between those games, you've got 1 person or 2 people trying to coordinate 20, 30 DMs, 300 players, 40 tables across 5 different rooms, and get everybody where they need to go in like 10 minutes. And it's a nightmare
Herding
scenario,
cats,
and a lot
man.
of people.
Yeah. What do we call that? Mustering?
Mustering, yeah. Or wrangling DMs if it's for the DMs.
And then sometimes people would fall ill or not show up or cancel their reservations, and then you'd be scrambling. to figure out how, these people were paid con attendees, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them sitting around with nothing to do. They're clients, they're customers. So, Living Greyhawk was very customer service oriented. You could play your character anywhere in the world. That was its main draw. It wasn't just, 6 guys, in a basement, so to speak. So you really wanted to have things for everyone to do every single slot. And if they wanted to sit out, fine, but make sure that they got to play if they wanted to play.
It sounds very impressive, just the amount of coordination you all did. I really commend you on that. Wow. You guys really, that level of people is that's something I don't know if I could handle. So
Joe,
good.
What's the largest interactive you ever had? How many people? You never said.
You said 350.
Well, not everyone actually participates in the interactive though when you're at that.
Okay.
So for the invasion of Abendfort, we had 33 or 34 simultaneous tables.
Times that by 6.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then for I know Southgard was smaller. For the Civil War, we had between 25 and 30. So I think Abendfort was our largest. Except maybe the finale when we went against the Earth Dragon, because that was 2 full rooms. I didn't organize that convention though, so I don't know final attendance. I think Abendfort was probably the largest though. So we had 180 active players going on side by side.
It's impressive.
198 is the math.
It's absolutely impressive. I got 1 or 2 quickie questions here, if you guys don't mind, on locations that I think are really crazy sounding, and I wanted to know about them. If you're okay with that, Joe and Britton. Yeah. The League of Assassins, was it very active in Dyvers?
It was not as active as.
He's shaking his head now.
It was not. So that's an evil part of the Alliance.
Okay.
So the Alliance is basically that, an alliance of different guilds. And the ones the head of the Infiltrators Guild, which are just that, they were spies and blackmail, ended up becoming the head of the entire alliance. So you would see the guilds that you could collaborate with more safely being more present. So you didn't get a lot of the slavers, you didn't get a lot of the assassins, and when they did show up, they were always the villains. You could be you could work with the footpads, you could work with the infiltrators, and that was okay. You could work with the smugglers, because those wouldn't necessitate you automatically losing your character.
Okay. I also love the name of this, the House of the Toothy Smile. That was like a bar run by this Jal the Friendly, is it?
Oh, wow. He was a retired adventurer, and he, because of the way he was played, became so popular for a short time, because he was basically one of the goals we tried to achieve was to think outside the box. So having a guy who was a former adventurer meant he already knew all your bullshit. So anytime you tried to do something, he knew it. Actually, this is a good example of why why I chose to become friends with Britt, because I met him playing Gumsk, but then we played another adventure right after that where he played a pacifist monk who sounded like Christopher Walken.
Oh God, that character.
And I'm like, how the hell
can
you play a pacifist in D&D, right? And so,
Rio.
Oh my God,
I got to hear this.
You want to explain how it works?
I got to hear this one. Yeah, Britt, come on, tell us that story. That's awesome.
Yeah, you do weapon finesse, unarmed combat, put everything into dexterity, and then you take the feats that let you do strength damage instead of real damage, so that you incapacitate.
Well, and at lower levels, before you even had that, so when we played together, he would just flank. That was all he did. Was he would aid another, He would just get in position, so he benefited everyone else's roles. If you were a rogue, which in Dyvers everyone was, if you were playing with that character, you were a murder machine, and he was a pacifist. And that kind of thinking was so just exactly what we wanted that we were like, holy shit, you need to come back and visit as often as possible.
And to play a monk character too. I mean,
so you're playing a monk.
I picked the things that were the least popular in the game, like a gray elf and a monk.
You literally played a monk who just stood there.
But he was so good at standing, Casey. He was so good at standing.
Those kind of characters really add flavor. I mean, we all have. I have a lot of NPCs. Like I have a jester he can't fight. You know what I mean? He's just they're insulting the other side. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like this guy was combatively, tactically helping the rest of the party, basically. Right? Is that what his gist was for the most part?
Yeah, he would. What he would. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that for me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Early on, what I would try to do, and this always failed, so I just gave up, is I would try to strike for unarmed damage as the last blow that something took, or give it like
to knock it out,
unarmed damage, so that when its normal hit points equaled its unarmed damage, it would pass out.
Right.
That's an interesting thing that organized play seems to really play into mechanics and it kind of try to bring out the most extreme possibilities in the game more than house games that you play at home.
Because you can't have house rules, right? Because then it becomes unfair.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
like fairness was the number one tenet, and mechanics that are equally so early on. One of the big dramas in Dyvers was you could join the Alliance, but it wasn't written down how you could join. And there was a stark difference in the location of player members in that they all existed in Iowa, where the leader of the Alliance was, and none of them existed in Kansas or Missouri. It was a really big point of tension. And so later on, while it kind of demystified it a little bit, we published how to join. You still had to have favors and all the rest, which required you to play properly. But it was important that everyone know that they were getting a fair shake.
All right.
We were in the middle of an adventure I was playing, and there was another guy who was a pirate who was the DM, and we'd both been trying to join the Alliance for years. And this 7-year-old kid hears part of the box text and goes, "Oh, I'm part of that." And the adventure just stopped because me and the DM were just looking at each other going, "What just happened?" We've been trying to get in this thing for 3 years, and this 7-year-old managed it. So yeah, like mechanics, I think, can in some ways quash the role-playing spirit a little bit because people just kind of focus on their bonuses. But it's also how you ensure a level playing field for everyone. And one more thing, please, Casey.
Mm-hmm.
To answer Christoph's earlier question of how did we get new people, it was the players who kind of rose above just crunching numbers who were always the biggest draw. Like we had the Church of Cord. The Cord is not really a native god to Dyvers. I mean, we had everyone, but it was like a church of 4 people. You know, it was who cares about a strength god in a place where you value the sea and you value money, except a player became the high priest of Cord, and that meant he got to help build the meta organization, and the meta organization had rules, so it wasn't broken. But he was just so passionate about the Church of Cord that, like, if anything ever slowed down and interactive, the church would just throw like impromptu wrestling matches, and just there was just always something going on. And by the end of the campaign, it had grown. Like we had tiers. You had like a temple, then a church, and then a cathedral. And he actually ended up building a cathedral to Cord, which required you to have X number of followers and thousands of gold. And so he spent his entire player fortune and had spent basically 5 years building a following. And so when you're a brand new player and you see this priest of Cord, praising the heavens and doing all this, and everyone else is having fun and blah blah blah, and you're like, whoa, what is this thing? Like, what part of the region? They're like, no, we just made that. That means your imagination still has a place. It can still fit. And so while we as Triad, we're mostly kind of tapped out in terms of recruiting new people, do good modules and host good events was kind of all we had the bandwidth for. The players themselves made the region worth participating in.
Yeah, absolutely. I was recruited working at a bookstore. Some people came in to buy the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. Shout out to Gary again. And I was like, oh, what's this? And they were like, oh, it's for Living Greyhawk. They told me what it was, and I showed up at one of their game days at somebody's apartment, and they explained to me, you can play this character anywhere, and had a good time. And soon, one adventure became 3 the next weekend, and then 5, and just kind of got started interested getting into the Bandit Kingdoms canon. I was familiar with Greyhawk, but I wasn't super into the BK from back in my younger years. So that's how it sucked me in. And then about Anna's question of min-maxing, when you have hundreds and thousands of players all playing the same published system, in the game Living Greyhawk, in which a circle member had publicly stated, don't make pink ninja characters.
Someone has to make it.
Well, the Pink Ninja is a useless multi-class character. That phrase. And Jason Bullman had made a public blog post chastising people for making quote unquote Pink Ninja Living Greyhawk characters, because Living Greyhawk had a very rigid number of encounters per adventure kind of math to it. And if you read the front section of my book, $9.95 on Amazon, you can learn all about that.
Yep.
I gotta get it out.
Thousands of players will absolutely dig in there and find out that if I do a rogue barbarian paladin, in this particular order, it will kill everything that they could put in front of me unless I roll a natural 1 on a saving throw.
It didn't help that early year was extremely deadly with very little reward. So it definitely encouraged the power gaming just in play.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay. Bandit Kingdoms, I do a very deep analysis of this, but 3.x has a very specific math to how many encounters you should get per level. It's like 13.33 average encounters per level, and how much gold you should be getting per average encounter, et cetera, et cetera. Living Greyhawk made you fight more things for less gold, basically.
One argument I'll make. So Jason and I actually disagreed on this fact, and I was not subtle about my disagreement with him, because the encounters were challenges. They were not combats. They had to be a combat or equivalent challenge. And in my opinion, it was a lack of imagination when people would say, don't be a pink ninja. If you can make a challenging pink ninja, it is valid if it is thematically appropriate for your region. Jason is incredibly good with numbers. If you want a mathematically lethal mage, he can make one for you at any level. But I thought, in my opinion, and this is not reflective of his Pathfinder work because I don't know it, but in LG, I felt that often limited his story creation because he enslaved himself to the numbers. You could create challenges. The requirement was it had to require some kind of performance, whether it be skills or whatnot, by the players, so that you weren't just giving them things. They had to be able to overcome it. So if you were having persuasion checks or some kind of tumbling check or whatever, somehow one of the most famous adventures I wrote was actually an introductory, where the players had to get a thing, and then the first encounter was someone else saying, "Hey, we've been come to get that thing from you," and the player's like, "No, you're here to steal it. Show us some kind of documentation." And they said, "Well, we're adventurers. How often do you get documentation?" And so the challenge was just then to determine, well, should we Like, are these guys on the up and up? And if not, if you fight them, you're going to lose, it turned out. And so the whole thing was just a bunch of sense motive. It was a whole bunch of persuasion and bluffing. And in the end, a whole lot of running away was the solution. But the challenge had nothing to do with fighting them. It was all about determining whether or not they were there to con you, because their argument was so incredibly sound that it sounded like the pitch an adventuring party would normally get. So once you determined how to overcome that encounter, you won. You didn't have to kill a single person.
It's good to see.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good point.
role play is a huge part of the game, obviously, and problem solving is always a fun thing. Sometimes it's good just to not throw anything major combative against a group, and that sounds like what you did there. I got a really bizarre question. I have to ask this. Just going through the lands of Dyvers and the Slavers reference. Did anyone ever desecrate the Thrommel's Archway?
No, I don't know.
Okay, I was just curious because I know there's in the trade district there's Thrommel's Arch. And I was just curious.
I don't know if it ever came up.
Okay, because I know there's a lot of Dyvers free on detention there sometimes, and I was just curious.
So there was a triad member who the other two people that were tried with him had kind of just disappeared, and he was off doing his own thing. And he actually tried, this is what led to the Civil War, was us fixing this. He wrote an adventure where one of the major nobles was a member of the Knights of the Heart and had actually reached out to Foryandi to cleanse Dyvers of its evilness.
I can see that.
And so the plan was to make Dyvers a heroic region, but we would basically become a vassal state of Foryandi, like Verbobank was of Valuna. But he had made that plan on his own because one of his characters was a Knight of the Heart. Right, so this was entirely him. Like, no one else in the region wanted this to happen, except for maybe like our two other paladin players. And so what we ended up doing was we had Lursa Hunter disappear. Then we had the Civil War, where one side is victorious. Then we would have actually become a vassal state of Foryandi, and we'd let the players determine who wins the war. And resoundingly, that got squashed. And then we murdered the noble so that he could never try that plot point again.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because Dyvers used to be the capital of old Faerun when they broke off from the Great Kingdom. So then it was kind of the opposite. Then it was Dyvers.
It was a little shocking to when we heard that the and we didn't like this. So this guy just kind of burnt himself out and left the triad on his own accord. So we didn't have to oust him or anything. But when we found out the plan was this unilateral association with Foryandi, we were just like, who, like, you're trying to make a state for the knightly good and paladins? Have you played in our region? Like, you'd literally have to scrap 90% of our player base.
Here's the funny thing, that even before this, in the 80s, Dyvers we thought of as, like, I'm sorry guys, but there's Greyhawk, Harbies, Harbies is what it is, but Dyvers was like the shithole city, right? It was always like that. That's the way we even thought about that in the Free City Greyhawk box set. Kind of goes that direction a little bit, and you got a lot of underhanded characters coming out there. I thought it was a lot more like neutrals. I thought it was a lot more Zilchus. I see Zerbo, Zilchus, and even like St. Cuthbert, lawful neutral. I saw more lawful neutrals than chaotic neutrals, but it doesn't sound like it went that way in the Living Greyhawk.
So no, it did, and so to advance this, or to really kind of build the story so that we could have an arc. I wrote something called intercalary chapters, which I picked up from Grapes of Wrath. Those chapters where the main characters don't exist, and they're just there to kind of show you how things are happening. we would have an intercalary chapter that would occur before or after every year 5 adventure, and they are in the folders I sent you today. They're written by me, so you have permission to reprint them however you want. That's fine. And they were little glimpses of like how the populace was dealing with the absence of Larissa Hunter. And there was one where the high priest, so the high priest of Zerbo and the high priest of Zilchis are brothers, and they were not on speaking terms for the first 4.5 years of the campaign.
Oh my God.
And so it was a small fiction chapter. It's only like 1,000 words that had them start talking to each other again. So yeah, those. Someone made the. Oh no, it was actually in that same chapter. There's a really early adventure that kind of set the tone for Dyvers players, where you're in a temple and there is a wooden door with a seal of Zilchis on it, the holy symbol of Zilchis in gold. And you're supposed to like not go behind it, or you can go behind it. The whole thing was what is there, what is not there. That was meant to be the premise. But in the very first playthrough, the players go, wait, is that painted gold or is that real gold? Well, it's the Temple of Zilchis. So the authors go, oh no, it's real gold. And they're like, okay. And so they start doing the math, and they're like, okay, it's this big, it's this thick, the door is this deep. You've got about a 2,000 gold piece holy symbol in this door. And this is back when the adventurers would pay out like 29 gold pieces for the entire adventure.
Oh my.
So the players scrap the adventure and spend the rest of the time dismantling the door so that they could steal the holy symbol. And
Joe's not kidding. Adventures gave nothing back in the
they gave nothing, and we are there to get paid.
Oh my
So
God.
so then they're like the triad at the time had to run in, and the church was like, oh, you rescued our holy symbol, thanks, and they would take it away. And because they were already talking about like, okay, we're gonna, should we just break it or should we melt it down?
Melt it down, I bet.
Yeah. Well, it was like, oh, what kind of enchantments are on it to prevent it from melting? And so then the church took it, and they're like, hey, do we get a reward for rescuing your thing? They're like, well, we were the ones that put the door there, so you didn't rescue anything. We won't throw you in jail for trying to steal it, though.
Britt, in the BK, didn't players in year 1 try to take doors and sell doors? Like if it was priced in the player's handbook, if it was a table, a chicken, a bag of flour, it would take it and sell it for half.
It wasn't just the BK; it was the locust swarm of year 1.
And I think
There was no treasure.
The story
bag
you're
of
talking
flour.
about is me and Travis and Kayla.
Oh yeah.
Doing that, and then also over in Yeomanry, there was some sort of monster that turned people into. It wasn't into stone; it was something more valuable. So it had shown up and turned a bunch of NPCs into something valuable. So we stole a cart nearby, loaded up the bodies, and sold them.
And
So
those
guy
early
that we
years,
played
there was no
with-
gold cap, right? There was like the later years would they tell you
Well,
on how
so
much
there was
gold
a
you could
gold
get.
cap for the authors of how much treasure they could put in,
Right.
but
Right.
accoutrements were not considered treasure. So Chad, the guy Britt and I first played with,
Oh my
spent
God.
his first money on a wagon and donkeys, because the first thing people do is like, oh, you can't take that table, you don't have enough carrying capacity. It's like, don't worry, I'll put it in the wagon. Literally, if it was not nailed down, it was gone.
Oh
And
my
you
God.
spend
It's sounding
you
Yeah.
have
like
an hour between adventures. So they're like, okay, I'm going to come back and tell you how much everything was worth that we just stripped out of this building.
Yeah.
We were locusts of human beings.
Yeah.
It seems like the adventurers needed a union back then to be better
Oh
paid
my
because
gosh.
they didn't reward enough. It was
And then eventually, I
That's
guess they
awesome.
figured out that we don't need to cap the stuff in the adventure. We need to cap the stuff on the adventure record. So that, you could only get 450 gold max or whatever it is. It was set by
People
Average
fighting over
level.
iron spikes and shit.
no that
Oh my God.
crowbar. That's a legal
That's gotta-
3.5 item. It's a tool, 50 gold pieces. Masterwork
wow.
crowbar gives you a
This is
+2 to
awesome.
breaking open shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I wasn't making the rules at the time, but I do remember
Yeah,
that
the poor
happening.
adventurers.
And The convention coordinators, the judge went off and started talking to the convention coordinators, like, what the hell do I do? I don't understand, because doors have a price in the books.
Wow.
And they eventually said, we can't give you this much money, but we'll give you this much. And we were all like, that's okay, that's fine.
Of course, no one role played out selling them and someone wanting to buy them, obviously. You know what I mean?
Well, no one talks about the quality, though. So
yeah,
that was our
oh
solution.
My God.
It
was funny.
When this started happening at the convention I was running, we did the calculation and went, holy crap, that's not possible. But who like, oh, well, you damaged the table, putting it on the wagon. You stripped the hinges on the doors. So you're not getting market price for all this stuff. And then we just distributed. We distributed to all the judges. They're like, hey, if they loot the entire building, this is how much money they can get. But don't tell them to loot the building. They have to think of that on their own.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was kind of ludicrous.
Wow.
There were two other.
Who knew that poverty was such a big thing in Greyhawk? That's amazing.
There were two other BK things that ended up helping us outside of the BK. One was our penchant for cutting things open to see if they swallowed anything valuable.
I feel like that's an old school thing.
Roper rule.
It showed up in the Greyhawk dungeon, or in the Gen Con dungeon crawl. One of the keys you needed to find was inside the stomach of something. And they thought, you're cheating. You're cheating. You never would have said, cut it open to see where the key is. And we're like, no, this is standard operating procedure.
Yeah, the BK. Oh my gosh.
And the other is shoot the body from 30 feet away. You see a body on the ground, shoot it.
If you see a little girl, she's a vampire, start turning.
I actually got this from Vernon, but it became really popular in Dyvers and Verberbonk. If someone dies, you cut off one foot and bury them upside down. If they're undead, they'll dig down rather than up. If you see someone limping, shoot them, they're undead.
Always cut the tongue out of the dead body so no one can cast Speak with Dead.
Talking about paranoia, my God.
It saves your life.
Life was tough in the Bandy Kingdom.
Because we would do that. When we ran events as judges, and a table, let's say they killed an Iusian and they just left the body behind. Well, we'd be like, well, other Iusians come along and cast Speak with Dead, and now they know exactly who killed this guy, and now they go looking for him. And we actually had a mechanic in the Bandit Kingdoms where you could be wanted by the Church of Ius for causing problems against Ius. Yeah. And it had different tiers about how many dumb things had you done, or how many times had you been caught fighting Iusians and whatnot that we created. But that kind of segues into, for people who don't know, Britt was in charge of the final Ius core plot line. And was he a more powerful god at the end or not?
Let's hear that story, Britt. Let's I want to hear that.
Okay, do you want the full thing or just what happened at the end?
Whatever you'd like to do. We got about 15 minutes left before so we're good.
Okay, I'll try to make it fast. Okay. The final adventure storyline for year 8 for the core region was Wheels Within Wheels was the name of the storyline. And I forced regions to feed certain bits of information into all their adventures across that year and into some of the core adventures as it went. And the overall plot was based on, and I might mess up a few minor things because it's been over a decade since I did the research, but Ius was originally trapped by Zagig in the God Trap, where it used, was it 12 deities?
9.
9 deities.
One for each alignment.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. So he had the 9 deities trapped, and that helped him trap Ius, and also for him to ascend. From what was it, hero deity to demigod? I don't remember.
No.
Yeah.
More.
Zagging.
Less.
Zagging. Zagging jumped even more than that? Oh, okay. So the plan was for all of this to be leading into some deities haven't been responding to prayers. We actually put that mechanic in where like, oh, you don't get a response to this particular spell throughout the whole game. And it all leads up to a plot by Ius because all he ever really wants is chaos and more power. So he has built his own god trap in the abyss where he's been catching demigods and putting them in there. Zagig was one of them. And the last thing he wanted was St. Cuthbert because he hates St. Cuthbert so much.
Payback.
So the previous storyline, or the previous couple of mods had the players finding out about this and going to tell the St. Cuthbert priest so that they could do something because Ius wanted them to, so that St. Cuthbert would come and he could trap him and then he could ascend. The result, we didn't get any table results. What I would like, the trade-off here for the players was going to be, you let Ius do this, St. Cuthbert goes away, and Ius goes away because Ius can't be on the prime material if he ascends anymore. So you have to choose, what is it? Save St. Cuthbert and Ius stays on? Don't save St. Cuthbert, Ius goes up and disappears. I think the latter is a better outcome, but
Which one is the latter?
I think the one where you have Ius ascend and St. Cuthbert disappears, I think that's a better story, but it's open to the DMs. I always planned on leaving it open to the DMs, but I did want percentage results. I just didn't get those.
We'll dive into a little bit because you had the Bone Heart in Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. Gary, or one of the other offers, seeds in that Ius knows one of the Bone Heart is plotting against him or something like that.
Vane's always plotting against him.
Right. But then, and Britt, you had the mods. Who was the one who actually turned on him? Kerman Mindbender, was it?
Yeah, it was Mindbender. Okay. Mindbender thought he could basically be Ius himself. He
become a demigod by killing Ius or something like that.
Wasn't there a codex or something that he was trying to get? The codex
of Infinite Plane.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay.
And that was in Living Greyhawk, where that was part of the story, right, Britt, where he was chasing this.
Yeah. Everything in that storyline comes from the old Greyhawk stuff. Some of it was just little seeds of motivation, like this character likes these things, but all the artifacts and the God Trap and the overall plan came out of that.
Like Kellenin was in it, makes a brief appearance, and I was the Living Greyhawk Kellenin nerd.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Britt reached out to me, and I wrote a little thing. My primary PC was a like Templar of Kellenin, and so we did a thing where she found one of the swords of answering off camera, so to speak, after she had retired in Steelbone Meadows. It kind of makes sense, right? There's a whole bunch of powerful bandits that get murdered by the Iusian at Steelbone Meadows. Maybe one of them had the chaotic neutral sword. Well, my retired PC was like neutral or neutral good, and we set up this thing where there was an adventure Britt wrote, I believe it was, where PCs were going around and collecting the swords of answering because they could use that to help fight Ius or whatever ritual he was using to mess with the other gods. So Kellenin makes a real brief appearance, like, you know, he's getting beat up and he's telling the players, like, you've got to get these swords, and then, you know, Ius laughs and drags them away to the abyss or something like that.
Right, which is exactly what his plan was, have them use the sword so that Kellenin comes so that Ius can get him and take him to the God Trap.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So you don't know, like, what percent did what? Is that what you're saying?
No, I did not get, well, I may have gotten like one table result. That's about, in the playtest, because I ran a playtest.
What happened? What happened in the playtest?
Yeah.
They saved St. Cuthbert.
That's a good thing to do.
Do you recall if Kerman beat Ius in that one?
No, Kerman got killed in that.
Hmm.
He tried to. It depended on the APL, where higher APLs, a couple of the Boneheart were with Ius, and Kerman dies in almost all of them, I think.
I think that's an off-screen kill, too. I just read the adventure not too long ago, depending on the actions of the PCs earlier. But, like, you get to fight the Boneheart in these adventures that were written. Cool. You know, we had some of the Bone Shadow in our region show up, like Keek, but, you know, you had Halga.
Althea, Halga.
Yeah, we had some of them
Jumper, all of them.
Chris Tulloch played Jumper at an interactive we hosted in like 2004 or 5 or 6, where we were doing semi-LARP interactive. We flew Tulloch in for it and told him he was playing Jumper, and he just had the greatest time.
That's
being
the crazy guy, right?
Boneheart. Oh yeah, purple robe, purple boots.
Yeah, the illusionist.
Right, and all that, and then you know, we had Kranzer as our main BK villain, lesser Boneheart.
Kranzer Riffkrag.
Yeah, and he's really smart, and we had them doing all kinds of stuff. But
and these guys, those Bonehearts, when we statted those out, what's the minimum APL on entrapment?
I forget, but we looked at Use the Evil, obviously, for their original stats. And when you convert them to third edition, they're just ridiculous. And in fact, I had to create a whole new guide to converting first edition to third edition stats, because Skip Williams got it wrong. I'll say it right now. I say it publicly. The first edition, second edition to third edition stat conversion by Skip Williams is wrong. Go to my website, cbediting.com. Look at my blog. You'll find an old blog post about it when I'm doing a Against the Giants blog post a couple of years ago. But anyway, I mean, they were all, 15th level, 14th level, but back in first edition, second edition,
that's a lot.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, they converted over to 18th, 19th.
Yeah, well, they're in Living Greyhawk Gazetteer with little levels besides them, like MU 19 or Magic, whatever.
MU had 8 years on top of that.
Right, and some of them had 9th level spells, so it's like, well, we had to retire Living Greyhawk characters at 16th level because in early years, PCs could reach 18th level, and it was just bonkers. You had a 17th level party running around casting time stops.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to DM that. It's hard to DM that.
Yeah, you can't do anything.
Well, it's hard to write it. If you print out the old adventures, you have the stat blocks for every tier. So your actual adventure might be 7 pages long, but your whole document would be 70 because you have 12 pages of front matter. That's all boilerplate. And then you have 10 bajillion versions of stat blocks.
Right. And the 3.0 stat block was so hideously ugly that thank God they switched it when they went to 3.5. And it still wasn't as refined as it got for Pathfinder. And obviously for 5th edition, I think they just went we want a stat block that can fit in the palm of our hand, no matter how badass the monster is or the NPC is. And, 5e, you try and convert something to 5e, it's going to lose a lot of its crunch, but that's just the nature of 5e these days. All
right, so let's as we're winding down here, Secret of Oblivion wants Joe to talk about the Earth Dragon and Blackthorn.
Oh, that was when I was living out here and flying back there. That is very rusty on my part.
That is the cave underground with all the knolls in it. It's a big cavern complex.
Yeah, it is. So we did something with Blackthorn. I didn't write it though. I'm trying to remember the Earth Dragon at this point. I wish I could say I remember offhand. What we talked about it briefly in the last time I was here was we had to create a 3-year arc. Mm-hmm. And the original assumption was that there would be more years afterward, although we kind of suspected there wouldn't be. And if you could tell from the stories I've been telling, the whole goal was to think outside the box and present adventures in a way that divert, no pun intended, from the normal structure of an adventure. And so the Earth Dragon was actually present to be a force that couldn't be stopped. Like the region wasn't actually expected to survive it. We were going to lose and actually become subservient to Greyhawk, who was going to fund our rebuilding. So the Earth Dragon, because a lot of people felt it was unrealistic that a city-state was able to defeat Tarash Mak. And so it was kind of a statement of, well, we can't defeat everything. So Blackthorn was a year 2 or year 3 adventure.
I can imagine it was a huge base of operations for humanoids out of the Gnarly, and
so we didn't actually end up using the Gnarly a lot because it was a shared space, and because
and
the way Dyvers handled the Gnarly and Verberbunk handled it were so radically different, and in a non-cooperative manner. It was pretty acrimonious, actually, that everyone just kind of threw up their hands and said, "Fine, we're going to just do our own thing." And there would be only 1, at most 2 adventures a year in the Gnarly, typically only 1, just to kind of maintain our copyright claim to the region. Everything else would happen in the counties, or almost everything happened in the city. So Blackthorn only appeared once, and then the Earth Dragon was meant to be this tidal wave of unpreventable disaster. But at that point, you also had high level adventurers, and so we did win, and it was the very last interactive of the campaign ever. And yeah, that it wasn't as meaningful as the earlier interactives I talked about, simply because it was the end.
Okay.
And the thing that mattered most about interactives were the ripple effects that player choices would have on the campaign.
Right. So it's not as memorable as some of the other things that had happened, which is understandable because it was early on, and so I'm not sure if that was something that that Seeker really sticks. Something funny happened. Seeker, if you want to put down something you thought that happened funny in chat, please do there, just so we can understand what it was. So okay. We've bounced around a lot, which is really cool, right? We don't want to go super late. So how about we start with we'll do Casey, then Britt, then Joe, and we'll just talk about some summations or some great moments or memories, or of course you'd all do it all again, no matter what. I know that, right? For all of you
Absolutely.
wouldn't trade
100%.
it for anything playing that. So what do you think, Casey? What do you got? You shut off.
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of them, but I'll go lighter on this one. We've been talking a lot about BK's Darkness, but here was a funny moment during an interactive. You got about 10 tables of players all playing the same thing. We're in the forest, we're in the Tangles forest. I'm a player at this point, playing a low-level, second-level character. And I'm at a table, and one of the NPCs, Garland the Druid, played by Tom Brister, a Triad member at that time, the NPC would wander from table to table each round during the combat rounds. And he would cast one spell on that table, and then next round he would move on to the next table. But he always cast a level appropriate spell at that table. He was a bad guy. So at my table, we were like second level. He casts Water Ball, some third edition, basically fireball, but water, so it does non-lethal damage. But it does a lot of it, so the intended purpose was it was going to knock us all unconscious. So Tom has Garland cast this spell at us. He's walking, he's in full costume. He points at the table and he goes, Water Ball, make your saving throws. And we all start rolling D20s. And we're all groaning because we all failed. And he's like, take 40 points of damage, save for half, right? And we're playing second level characters. So we're all knocked unconscious except for Marcia. Marcia's playing a rogue who made a nat 20 on her saving throw and evaded it. Took no damage. And Marcia goes, I'm alive! I didn't take any damage. And Tom, who was walking away, turns around and looks at her and goes, Quickened Water Ball, and throws another spell at her PC. She fails the save, takes the damage, gets knocked unconscious, and is just sitting there looking at him like he kicked a puppy, because now her character was knocked unconscious. But as a player at that table, that was one of the funniest things I ever saw.
That's lighthearted Bandit Kingdom. That's
Yeah, that's you're right. That's
awesome.
lighthearted. Oh, we're just gonna knock you out.
Well, we didn't
That's
die.
awesome.
Other people came along and woke us
Oh,
up.
that says a lot about Bandit Kingdom playing. That's awesome. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right, Britt, what do you got for us, man? Thanks for really hanging in there. I know it's morning for you.
Oh no, glad to be here. Since I've got two guys that I definitely came for, Casey and Joe, so I'll do one from each.
Good.
Casey, probably the times at his apartment when we would argue like back and forth incessantly, not fighting, but argue, just to try to make an adventure work or interactive work a certain way, or even over rules and things like that. That, it's nice that you can argue and still walk away from it and make something good out of it.
Absolutely.
And Joe, I would say that that thing we've called back to twice already, I think it's the same adventure as the second one you mentioned. that we played together with the monks, where the DM was just so awful that he basically ignored us and was playing with his 3 friends, and we just ended up making up our own adventure, just talking to each other and rolling dice and making up dialogue with NPCs and little challenges to jump around just to entertain ourselves the whole time. So those are my 2.
Awesome. It's always good to have those little tidbits to remember.
That guy was not ready for us.
Britt's not kidding either. What's the fastest we wrote an adventure together, Britt? We wrote like BDK 601 or 508 in like one night.
We wrote 2 that day, I think.
Yeah. He came down to College Station, was hanging out with me, and we had to get shit done.
Yeah, that's boom, boom. And they were probably really good, too, because you weren't thinking. You were just spur of the moment. Oh, this blah, 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 and it flowed.
Yeah.
Which ones did we do?
I think it was 508 and 601. But 601 was pretty complicated.
What's the names on them? Do you remember?
I'll have to look at my book.
Oh, groan. All right, well, he's doing that.
Anyway, go on, Joe.
So correction, I was looking through the adventures, and Blackthorn was actually year 8. I'm like, okay, which author wrote Blackthorn? I did. Don't remember that one whatsoever.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
I cannot answer your questions. Year 8 was a horrible blur for me.
You know what? You're honest about it, and that's the important thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, that you don't remember, and there's nothing wrong with saying I don't remember if you don't. So nothing wrong with that at all.
For me, in terms of the entire campaign, it was those moments where you could see how impactful it was, that things would linger beyond just the 4 hours you spent at the table. And last time we were here, we talked about special adventures, the special missions you could request. And it was actually Vernon Vincent who was my very first special mission request, because he was at the Battle of Adminfort. And one of the encounters is you are being tasked to rush forward to accomplish a thing, deliver orders or something. I don't remember exactly what, but you had a fixed amount of time to get there. And as you're going, you kept getting what would traditionally be seen as encounter hooks. So-and-so needs help. Do you stop and fight them? And of course, the answer to all of them is no. But they start playing on your stereotypes. Oh, it's soldiers. Okay, we'll leave them. They're soldiers. Oh, it's female adventurers. You know, what's your toxic masculinity going to do? Oh, it is urchins, because of course we took the Urchins Guild with us. They were our runners. And if you stop for any of these groups, you were going to lose that encounter and possibly the entire invasion. And he is playing his Paladin of Rao, and he had to leave those children to die. And I get a 6-page in-character exploration of faith where Vernon has declared himself a fallen paladin and wants a special mission to redeem himself. And we had to sit down and examine the philosophical impact of his decisions and the greater good and da-da-da-da. And this was weeks after that thing. And he didn't want anything special. Like, he didn't want a magic sword or a blessing from his god. He wanted the permission to keep playing his character. And that is tremendous. And then when we finished the Civil War Interactive, I ad-libbed. I had to play one of the major gentry of Dyvers, I think. And I hopped up on a chair. We had collated all the results of the tables. We had colored construction paper so that a DM could show green, yellow, or red, depending on how well and what decisions his table was making, without tipping off the players that their choices were having impacts.
Oh, that's neat.
Just count. Oh, there are 12 greens right now, and there are 17 reds. That means things are turning this way. And I get up at the end, and I just do this improv speech that ends, we are today and forever will be the free and independent city of Dyvers. And the place lost its shit and was just, the cheers were vibrating off the walls. And
Great.
It was just confirmation that my emotional investment in this region was shared by 150 plus other people.
Nice.
And it was just complete affirmation that all the hours I had spent were worth it. In May, my girlfriend, who is now my wife, our first May together, we never saw each other. Because May is convention season. You are writing adventures and interactives and getting things ready. And then you get to that big weekend in Dyvers and you have that response. And it's like, yes, that was worth May. That was not a sacrifice. That was an investment. And those dividends were completely worth it.
Memorable.
What's neat for me to imagine is these moments were happening not just in the BK and not just in Dyvers, but everywhere, High Folk, Ket, overseas and on wall, etc., like that. And they were unique to each region. And that has been something that just hasn't been replaced by Pathfinder Society or Living Forgotten Realms or what is the 5th edition one? Adventurers League. The regional system was so much work, they will never do it again unless they can monetize it. But it gave us these great stories like Joe just shared.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. Yep. All right. We'll hit some personal shout outs out in the last couple of minutes. We'll run a little bit late. No big deal. Mike, you've been quiet for a little while. What do you think? What do you got going on?
Oh, what do I got going on? Stop over at Greyhawk. I'm going to post a new article today. My previous one, I steal a little bit of Anna's Thunder, and I talk about a polar map of the Flanneas that I drew like 20 years ago. Otherwise, it was just enjoyable sitting here listening to Casey, Britt, and Joe.
Definitely.
Thanks, Mike.
Awesome.
Where's your Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign at these days?
Finished.
Dunzos.
Wow.
Yeah, just in time for the COVID.
Yeah, now you start a new one quickly. Yep.
Yeah, run one online. I need all the hours of the day filled.
Well, at the end of the announcements, if you don't already know, Mike has a little special byline with someone else on a placard coming up shortly. So for an adventure event. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Anna was a listener too for the most part here, which is good.
But this is so much fun just listening to it. It's amazing. It's I just love it. And I got another little thing to put on the map, so that was awesome. And I also have to thank you, Mike, so much because that inspired me to dig into to work on the continental layout of Earth. So I started posting a little bit in the Flannese Geographical Society. I need to figure out exactly where the Flannese is. So I need to kind of figure out. So I thought, let's kind of work on something that might be as a model in the future to work on, so to speak. So I'm trying to get the community to I want to weed out to get if we can get something that is widely accepted, generally accepted in the community as the model going forward. That will be awesome. We'll see. This is a very sensitive topic and very little there's very little to build on, so to speak. So I don't want to be presumptuous and say, oh, this is the way it looks like. No, not at all.
What if you're a flat earther?
Exactly. We have the flat earthers too. So yeah, we have to see. We have to accommodate them too. So somehow this is a sensitive topic. So I'm not coming with a solution. I just want to start putting things in there. See if we can get a general kind of agreement. This is something that will be useful to a large part of the community. Then I can move forward with it. So that's one thing. And also, I just released a bunch of my own campaign heraldry that I've been sitting around for some months that I forgot to publish, and now I thought it is the perfect time to publish some of it. So I did, for my upcoming Shieldlands campaign, I created a whole bunch of IU's heraldry because that will be part of the campaign. So I made heraldry for the Bone Shadow, the Bone Claw, the whole shebang, General Sindel, and a whole bunch of others, and some of the ones that IUcian villains that I want to introduce in my own campaign. I made heraldry for them too. So that's kind of, you can go and steal it on my Patreon page. All the stuff that I post on Patreon is available for everybody right off the bat during the COVID crisis. So I'm not holding back on anything. So I'm trying to do extra. So give that. So those are the two things right at the moment that I'm kind of working on. So, but also the Atlas will start getting the first test page will come out in a couple of weeks, and then we can work on there. And once people like the concept that for the new 576 Atlas, then I can start producing hopefully a page a day or something like that until it's all done. And it will probably be about 70, 75, maybe 80 pages all in all before that is done. So yeah, so those are the upcoming things. And now I have more time on my hands. I'm wrapping up a huge Cobalt Press project that will probably take me a week or 10 days, and then it's done, maybe even less than that. And then I have set aside hopefully a couple of months, and if this kind of a world crisis goes on, there will probably be less commissions and stuff, so which means that I will have some months and just working on Greyhawk stuff. So there will be more coming out. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. And Anna will be a part of something at the end of the announcements as well. So Casey, what do we got?
I'm continuing to work on a campaign with Joe. Just started that Essentials Kit adventure, Roll20 in Discord. Got really inspired by watching a lot of the virtual GaryCon stuff, plus being locked at home. Started off a little rough, but we're getting it smoothed out. We got the technical issues smoothed out, and I think it went well. And then I have a once a month Ghosts of Saltmarsh. They are level 4. They're currently in the ruins of the Tower of Xenopus. I'm using the 1977 information as much as possible for the mapping and whatnot. And the NPCs had to, convert the monsters to 5th edition and 4th level appropriate, because obviously that was a sample dungeon for 1st level characters in 77.
9th level.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And then next up for them will be Isle of the Abbey, a 5th level adventure. And I've decided that the clerics on the Isle of the Abbey and Ghosts of Saltmarsh are Iusians. Even though this is set in Keeland and on the Azure Sea, here's my thought patterns for those of you familiar with Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Captain Zendros, the tiefling who sells magic items in Saltmarsh, she is an Iusian. She's openly an Iusian. She's a quartermaster, faithful quartermasters of Ius. So my theory is she's feeding information to kidnappers through the magic items and she's looking at the magic items through their eyes and whatnot, scrying. People get kidnapped, and then they get taken to the Isle of the Abbey, where they're sacrificed or turned into slaves by Iusian clerics. The Iusians are working with the pirates and the smugglers, but as a result of my PC's actions under the Tower of Xenopus, the smugglers and pirates are going to get mad at the Iusians, feel like they were screwed over, going to attack the Isle of the Abbey, which is in the background of the adventure anyway. And then that leads to the PCs going to investigate the Isle and finding the surviving Iusians. So that I was thinking long and hard about this, and I think I'm going to have Lord Obmi be Captain Zendros's bodyguard. And I'm working on a 5th edition conversion of Lord Obmi right now. And I've got him right now as a Fighter 5, Thief 7, based on his stats in the Giant series, page 20 of G1 through 3. Obviously, you have to tweak his stats because they're crazy high. Because in 1st edition, your stats were meaningless unless they were stupid high. But I'm really happy with the conversion so far. He's got like an armor class of 24, and in 5th edition, that's insane, insanely high. So I think I'm going to have him, once the PCs figure out that the Isle of the Abbey clerics were Iusians, they're going to go and they'll probably try and attack the tiefling Iusian in Saltmarsh. I'm going to have him just step out of the back of her shop and wreck them. They'll be 5th level, and there'll be this 12th level guy with a dwarven throwing hammer just wrecking them.
Is that 576 you're doing it in, or are you doing a different time frame?
I never declared a time for it, honestly. I think it is pre-wars, but other than that, I've left the time. No one in the game is a Greyhawk nerd, so I just said to hell with it. I'm not going to worry about that.
That makes sense. Excellent. Britt from Korea, thank you so very much for coming again. What do you got? What do you got going on?
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
What do I have going on? Well, unless you want to help me develop some classes at a Korean university, about all I've got is modding No Man's Sky. So
You can
Not
plug
a
your
lot
dog.
going on.
I guess
Oh
because
yeah,
Yeah, plug your dog.
I guess with the
Nico.
time difference, it's really hard to get involved on
Okay.
the Discord channels, right? But there's people in the middle of the night on our Discords, especially on the Cannon Fire one. They're up till 3, 4 in the morning talking. So.
Yeah, but then I'm talking to people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just it's hard to do much here. Like there's not any gaming going, no tabletop gaming.
So
For
quick,
you, really.
quick, serious question, Britt. What is the situation in Korea like related to the virus?
People are cautious, probably more than they need to be now, but it's pretty much all under control. But they're still keeping everything locked down. Like our university just went to all the whole semester online, which is part of why I'm having trouble. I have to develop everything because I do interactive classes where I make them ask questions, and that's not going to work online. So they take your temperature everywhere you go. Yesterday I went to a doctor, and like when I was signing in, they take your temperature. We went down to an island for a little bit at the beginning of the semester, and I think on our way back we got checked 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. So they're just extra cautious. Everybody wears masks, wash your hands. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Is hand sanitizer, if you can find it. Is it still available? We bought a ton before we left, but I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I can't find it
here.
No.
And if you do find it, you can only buy one.
Yeah. Well, stay safe. But on a gaming note, how do we get you gaming, right? We're all kind of in this virtual phase.
Time frame is going to be part of the problem. And I'm so far behind on school stuff. I need to get that done.
All right, so
those are the 2 issues.
You need to pay him, is what he said.
So here, I got an idea, Britt. Yeah. I got an idea. Just think about this, because I know Casey's chomping at the bit too. I have the Greyhawk All Stars event this Saturday, but I'm going to do one a month. So maybe in May, it's a Saturday night. What does that convert to Sunday for you? What does that convert to?
Sunday morning. Sunday morning. It's roughly 12 hours different.
So maybe you could do it. I get you and Casey and a couple other Living Greyhawks, and we have a Greyhawk All Stars Living Greyhawk game for, where I remote and IDM it and all. What do you think, Casey?
Hell yeah, do it in first edition. Make us do it.
Of course I will.
Yeah,
I'll do it in my style and all that, and miniatures and the whole deal. And we'll see who wants to play.
Well, you know what I'm going to vote for? APL 10 so I can play Garn again.
Well, you love Garn, so yeah.
Oh, he was beautiful in first edition.
So is that a possibility, Britt, for you? All you got to do is remote zoom in.
We'll give you puppy
definitely.
eyes.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. You said May. We'll have to check the dates and everything, of course.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I still have my 2E player's handbook. I'm just going to put that out.
We'll coordinate. Don't worry, Joe. We'll coordinate it. We'll get 4 to 7 players. Yeah, absolutely. So, Geigar, I do not live anywhere in New York City. I live near Philadelphia, nowhere near New York City. I am 6 miles outside Philadelphia. I'm in South Jersey. I'm not in North Jersey. It's not really that bad down here. Jersey's in two separate states, if you know New Jersey, North and South. So half are Philly fans, half are, New York fans. So no problem, no problem at all. So
follow Sam Jackson's advice.
I don't even. What did he say? I'm sorry.
He did a stay the F at home.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yes, Phantom is North Jersey guy. It's okay, though. So thank you so very much, Britt. I'll be in touch with you. I'll go through Casey or whatever. We'll get it all. We'll see if we can get that worked out for next month's Greyhawk All-Star game. Because I have a feeling I'll still be, it doesn't matter. It'll be Saturday night anyway. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Joe.
Yeah, for me, I am a fledgling streamer. I focus mainly on video games, although if I can get a group of role players who are comfortable on a stream, I would absolutely love to do that as well. I've posted my channel in the chat. With Jay's help, I passed 50 followers, which is one of the requirements to reach affiliate status. I now have to get my my average viewership up. So even if you want to just show up and leave me on in the background, you're helping me. Things aren't bad here. I wish more people were taking this seriously and staying home. It's probably the hardest part because we're in the live free or die state. The or die people are sometimes winning. I am also very tired of being in my basement all the time. However, that's actually reconnected me with role playing. I tried to get into a Shadowrun campaign that never got off the ground. Then I was in a 5e pickup game that was a disaster from the first seconds. And then Casey was like, "Hey, I want to do this thing." And I'm like, "Yes." So it has been so wonderful that this channel got me back into role playing after so many years.
Thanks.
I absolutely love
Wonderful.
digging through all my
Yeah.
old stuff today. And am frequently violating my rule of no one wants to hear your character stories. And of course, my character stories are so much better. I was like, "Oh, remember that time I accidentally murdered that one person because I thought she was a high-level sorcerer and she really had 4 hit points? Weren't those the wacky days?"
I'm just happy Britt didn't talk about how his character is the only one who ever killed Morgan Staller.
We've all heard that story.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to post my
nat
stuff one more
1
day.
or nat 20 and then a nat 1 on the save.
So thanks,
Unbelievable.
Jay, for having us on.
Oh, Joe,
Yeah,
come on,
thank you,
man.
Jay.
And it wasn't just me. Phantom came
Mike
on
and
and followed
Anna.
you. Pluffett Smed, Gary Julian came on and followed you. There's a lot of
Yeah,
people.
so many people hopped on. Like I
Yeah.
was in the middle of playing Might and Magic
Yeah, I was
Battle
like, let's go
Chess,
help
which
'em.
is really just poker. He's like, "I'm going to have some people show up," and so I had my usual 2 followers, and then 9 more people showed up. So I just kind of turned off the game. I'm like, "Let's talk about D&D."
Exactly. It was
That's
great.
why you're all here.
It was great.
That's
Definitely.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I put out the call, and whoever was around at the time, it was right in the middle of the afternoon, came on and helped, and that's part of growing the
That
community.
was super awesome.
Yeah,
of
no
all.
problem. Community growth. That's why we're doing this event on Saturday. Another reason. Let's hop through real quick what we got going on, and hopefully I won't pull out any of the wrong things. Tomorrow night we finish up adventure number 876. And that's, yes, 876th adventure in my campaign of 40 years. Rescue into Cairn Hills, we finish that up tomorrow night. The adventure group Iron Fury has found out that they're up against Dark Elf leadership as they're trying to rescue the spears of Jandazur, all those Tritharian fools who went off out there on their own thinking they could handle something, and they couldn't. So we finish that up tomorrow night. All remote, unfortunately, none of my guys at the table, but we kind of handled that last time. I got a lot of big ones coming up. So here's the one. Thanks, Bishop. Really appreciate all the cheers and the tier 2 sub. That was fantastic. Thank you so very much. This is Saturday night. This is the first one, the Greyhawk All Stars event. Scott Casper and Greyhawk Mike Bridges are playing in a game, Delve into the Lord's Tomb, which I have run. I ran about 20 years ago in my campaign, but I ran at PAX Unplugged. Anna's in it as well. The ever mysterious Tim, Tom, the enigmatic Alan. I'm missing one person, aren't I? There's 7. Who am I missing? I apologize if I missed someone. Maybe that is 7. I can't add, but there'll be 7 in that, and then we'll do a Living Greyhawk group if Britt's available for the next one next month. So yep, this Saturday 7 p.m. We may run to midnight on this because we want to get this done. So hopefully Scott doesn't have Casper has a bedtime, but we'll force him to stay up on that. All right, what's in store for Living Greyhawk? First things first. Next week. Oh, by the way, Gavin Lord's Peak Saving this Sunday. Character originations. That's what we're gonna talk about. Character stories. How you build up a character. Get some background, build up for him. That's what we'll talk about on Sunday. Here we go. Next week we have. Anna and I talked about this, and we're gonna go back to the Free City of Greyhawk for Legends and Lore, and we're gonna talk about a lot about Greyhawk City, but we're gonna talk about politics, guilds, and locations for the most part.
Nice.
Okay, you like that? Yeah,
That's gonna be awesome.
Thank you. Anna and I hashed it out today. Gary gave us some ideas, and we didn't take any of them. So I'm sorry. I'm kidding, Gary. But they were really good. But this is what we came up with for this discussion next week. I'm going to get into. I love the guilds and that box set there, Mike. The guild discussions are fantastic. So we're going to get into that part of the Free City of Greyhawk, and that'll be next week. The week after, don't know what's going on, but this is tentative. Someone that we all know and love is going through
Wine harvest.
and I never printed it out. Okay, in 3 weeks from tonight. This individual is going through chemotherapy, and in 3 weeks, he is asked to come on Legends and Lore. And so Legends and Lore number 48, our special guest, who haven't I said tonight?
Leonard.
Leonard Lakofka will be on
Yes.
Gavin in 3 weeks.
Wow.
I'm not Gavin, Legends and Lore on a Wednesday night in 3 weeks. That's the plan. So as long as his chemo goes well and he's not super sick and he has a 2-week recovery. So yeah, Leonard will be back on and we'll decide the topics as he's feeling a little bit better. Yes. So I talked to him today, and I'm trying to get Luke to come on and say hello too. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm going to try to get Luke Gygax to come on and say hello for Leonard as well. So that's what's going on in our world. So thank you all. See you tomorrow night. We got tomorrow night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. So we got 3 more streams in 4 nights. I'm looking forward to it.
Wow.
Britt, thank you so very much for coming on and bearing with us. Actually, you're probably the furthest guest ever we will have away from us. It's on the other side of the planet.
Very
Think about that,
likely,
guys.
yeah.
The other
Who do we
side-
know in Australia?
Yeah. Korea's further. isn't
Joe
it?
Fitzgerald
Yeah.
was
Oh,
triad
yeah,
for
good
Australia.
Joe Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
And
So-
you, me, and him wrote a core adventure together.
So I
That's
need guys, the 3 of yous, for our May Legends Living Greyhawk. I need new guests. I need you guys. You guys think of a couple of people who have not been on or want to come back and discuss an area we haven't discussed yet. Because we want to keep this up at 1 a month. So please help me out there with some ideas of a couple of individuals that we can bring on for the next Living
Absolutely.
Greyhawk.
And Greg Marks is in the chat. He should absolutely help us keep trying to get Tulok or any other people.
Oh, is Greg Mark
No.
Seeker?
No, Greg Marks is Mark something.
Okay.
Mark
Where did the
CMG.
initials go?
Oh no, that Mark CMG is Mark
Isn't-
from.
I got nothing.
That's a
there.
different.
Oh, I thought that was Greg Marks.
No,
with
it's
the
not.
CMG.
No, that's Creative Mountain
Ah.
Games. That's Mark from Creative Mountain Games. So
Ah,
you were wrong.
damn.
But
But
it's a
anyway,
subtle plug, though.
shout
Right?
out to Greg Marks, and he's got a pretty wide and powerful net, I imagine.
All right, we're gonna
But-
we'll figure it out. We got a month, so we kind of stack them out. So everyone, be safe. Hopefully, family and friends. And yeah, Mark is finally starting to stream Creative Mountain Games. I don't have a shout out on here, Mark. I'd hook that up, but I don't have one here. But let me hop up these two, so that you guys have the Greyhawk All Stars and our game coming up tomorrow night. So thanks a lot, and you guys want to hang a little bit as we do our after talk.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
sounds
Britt,
good.
stick around. We talk.
We BS over. You can always talk over the ads. So yeah.
I really want to get Joe now, Britt. I think that would
Britt,
be
you're
fun as
muted.
hell.
Still muted.
You're muted, Brett.
There we go. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yay.
My first step was
No problem, Mark. Anytime. There you go.
It's
So
fantastic.
we are, fun times, great participation. Really, thank you all for another great show. Living Greyhawk ones are always fantastic.
Yeah.
I was
Thanks to you guys. I mean, Anna and Mike and Jay, because showing interest in this old material has helped to revitalize, I think, us old Living Greyhawk types, and
right.
maybe we'll get more involved, with what's going on. Joe's project has really inspired me. I need to get my butt in gear and write my Bandit Kingdoms 5e stuff,
Well, I
whether or
wouldn't
not it
call
goes
a
to
project.
Guild.
I mean, I just uploaded a folder that was just it's like 2,000 files. I didn't at all like pull out the irrelevant stuff. I just said here's a file. You're welcome to look at
But
it.
you did it,
Yeah. Oh,
there
well,
are a
that
bunch
stuff
of
was.
crash log files in there and stuff like that.
So I've been looking forward to this since January, and I really had to think why would it be relevant for anyone to tune in and listen to? And you don't get many urban campaigns that don't find a reason to leave the city after an adventure or two.
I'm gonna
Much
put on a
less
couple other
something-
things, guys. Stay hanging, no big deal.
Much less something that goes on for 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it was. While we had a lot of similarities with the Bandit Kingdoms in terms of theme, we were the only region that was a city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you have
that's
to.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone
Iron
else
Gate
had a
wasn't
kingdom.
city. Iron Gate wasn't its own region. Or...
No.
No.
I guess that was one of the few others I can think of. Real Astra, maybe, or something.
Mm-mm. We were the only one, and you had the counties, but even
Yeah.
so, like we fit in the palm of most other regions.
Yeah, most of
areas.
fully fledged countries, and
Yeah.
this is just a city with a city state. Yeah.
And then the biggest influences, canon-wise, are all from things you're not allowed to use. So
Yeah.
how do you not use
Yeah,
Greyhawk and
that's a
not use
challenge.
the Temple of
Good night,
Elemental
good night,
Evil?
Mark. Yeah, that's a challenge and a half, man. Not being able to use certain things,
Yeah.
you know.
And it was the people that
I'd
came
go
before
crazy.
me.
I would go crazy.
Yeah, you could interact with Greyhawk, the biggest rival, local rival, but that was, or
We-
both, compete and have rivalry and also cooperate.
And that's a testament to the early tribe
Okay.
of the region before I took over, that they were able to find an identity for the city that let it be something where you did not leave town. Like, I mean, it's a really big city, so you were in different areas. Like Boxtown is a thing that was basically people stole the shipping crates from the docks and used it for free living, and it's called
Ah.
Boxtown. And it became a really important part of the city.
Yeah, so part of the story was that the city became much poorer after it stopped being a capital and just became a little free city.
Yeah.
Or what was the
And well, we also had a fire that killed like 10,000 people. And so the homeless population, when we started, because the Great Fire was near the end of the Greyhawk Wars, but before the region started. So it was, there was a mass concentration in wealth. So you had really rich, really powerful people, and you had very poor people. Not
Because
like
Dyvers
that
has
sounds
the-
familiar.
Yeah, well, yeah, but and especially in times like this, but the Dyvers have this kind of old glorious past as an imperial capital, or at least the kind of the it's like Delhi in India. It was the second biggest city, or the city of seat of power for the Western capital of the Great Kingdom. So yeah.
And it came up in chat that Dyvers, our approach to Dyvers was we were on the other side of the tracks. Like everyone always said, oh, you're the former capital for Yandi.
Yeah.
No, we are the current free city of Dyvers.
Yeah.
You're not Greyhawk. No, we're not, and we don't want to be. Screw those guys. It was just we came from the other side of the tracks, and we were super proud of our side of the tracks.
Yeah.
Even if you're an outsider and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, you're kind of you're a slum. Like, yeah, but we're our slum, right? Like, you just don't take that away from us. We're the best slum in the world.
That took the limelight and
yeah.
So did I hit? I linked the wrong one. Yeah, the Rescue in the Cairn Hills finale, Bishop, is tomorrow night. I probably threw out the wrong placard. That was my own dumb fault.
Well, you had to press the
Too many
button
buttons.
at least once.
Yeah. Hold on.
Once.
I can throw it right. Watch
Throw
this.
it up there.
Watch, I'm gonna throw it up, and I made a brand new one too. Oh, it does have the wrong date on it.
See?
No, that's right. No,
That's
tomorrow.
right.
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the
Thursday,
night.
that's right. No, it's right. Thursday, April 9th.
Yeah, today is
Tomorrow night.
Wednesday. All time is lost meaning.
Well, Brit,
that's correct.
Brit's in the future. He's a time traveler.
Oh, that's true. So
Oh,
he's
I know it.
already
I
in
know,
tomorrow.
because it
Yeah.
says next week on the Streamlabs shout out, because when I played it last Thursday, it was next week, but I didn't change it to tomorrow. That's why. Got it. That's why. Okay, sorry about that.
Are you doing a drawing tomorrow, Jay?
Oh,
I got my one
gosh.
taste. I got the
Yeah.
the 2 minis from Reaper, and now I'm hooked.
Yeah, tomorrow night is not a drawing night. I'm sorry, but let's see. Because remember, I gotta mail this stuff out. Which means I gotta go to my post office, which is really small. Yeah.
You can't just. Oh, you don't have stamps for that kind of.
No,
big
I gotta box up
package,
stuff.
do you?
But tomorrow night we will not have one. So, but we will. Did Britt have to leave? Britt leave?
I think he had to
I'm
go.
here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Still
cool.
here. Yeah.
So, yeah, tomorrow night's not one, but we've had one the last 2 weeks. So normally we do 2 a month, and then one. Then we add miniature building authorities every quarter. So we do 9 a quarter. So if we're playing every Thursday, that's not too bad. 9 giveaways.
No,
Yeah, I know,
amazing.
man. It's funny. So
You're building the community and you're sharing with the community.
I'm trying, man. Trying. Everything's going, and you're all part of it too. So everything's going great. Not bad for a guy who was in the shadows for 38 years. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
you and your group have made a big transition in the past few years.
Yeah.
Great. You should see Jay's setup. It's
Oh,
Like-
It looks like a
amazing.
store. It's his
Yeah.
basement.
it is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just watch one of the old vids, Britt, from like last week or whatever, the Karen Hills one from last week. But that one's not that. The table's not impressive. You want to watch the fundraiser event, the Return of the Falcon. That's what you want to watch. That fundraiser event when Casey was here, Anna was playing remotely. That's when that one I had almost the entire central town, part of my town, Altamira, up on the map. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
great.
I'll look for it.
yeah.
I converted my Living Greyhawk PC Garn to Jay's first edition
Oh, yeah.
system
1E2,
Is awesome.
especially Priest
Yeah.
of Kellen, and
Yeah.
for that one. It was
Oh
awesome.
yeah, that was the Kellerman character. I forgot.
yeah.
Well, the other one was too, Brianna.
Oh, Brianna, yeah.
Yeah. No, they both were. I was a little obsessed.
Well, at least
That
it's
trailer
an
is so
obscure one.
awesome. Yeah, it's one of the best. I mean, Nightheart Gaming did it. It's so fantastic for that.
Yeah.
fundraiser. Look down the road. Oh, so the last thing I know, probably Gary's not on, but I'm serious about virtual Greyhawk Con. I'm dead serious about it. I'm thinking about how to do it.
I think you're onto something, and I think you're one of the people in the community that could get that organized or kick the right people in the pants. Britt, do you still talk to Conrad at all? You're on mute. Britt.
I have not heard from him in forever.
Conrad used to organize the BK conventions and did some in Living Forgotten Realms, and I was thinking he might be a good resource for Jay, but I don't know if he does any online conventions.
No, I
Incoming.
haven't heard anything.
What does that
Okay.
mean, incoming? Christoph just put. Is that incoming a message to me, or incoming that my house is about to hit?
He's about to join our little post
Oh,
rap
he's
chat
more
because he wants to
welcome
talk to Britt.
But
Yeah, you should
Yeah.
run with this virtual Greyhawk idea, and I will absolutely assist you in whatever way my fiance allows.
Okay. My problem is that we may need we'll get Will. We got Wicked Studios. We just may need a couple other streamers, man. That's the thing.
Well, we
Good
have a
ones.
lot of streamers in Nightheart Gaming and Jimmy Duffy and
But they're not Greyhawk people.
No, but to some degree they are. So they might be Greyhawk people for a weekend or
That's true.
So,
That's true.
yeah, you never know.
We just gotta get some Greyhawk streamers. All right, guys, we're gonna end. Here comes Christoph in, but we're gonna end the stream tonight. So thanks, guys. We'll see you all tomorrow night for a real good adventure. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, everyone.
you guys hang
Good
here.
night, everybody.
See ya. Have a good one.